Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
Yeah.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Good Thursday, everybody. The Sports Bash is live. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. What is up, one and all? Holy mackerel, Thursday during the week. We're at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. I can't wait for Thursday Night Football. Now, last week we talked about the routines coming back in. Now the routines are really back in. There's no Friday game. You got the Thursday, college football Saturday, NFL Sunday. We're ready to go. Bills and Dolphins tonight. Phil's have an off day, but they were not off last night. We'll dive into that game. We're going to get into some Eagles and Falcons. The voice of Monday Night Football on 97.3 ESPN, Kevin Harlan, is going to join me at 2:30 today. Kevin Harlan, 2:30. We'll talk a little Birds and Falcons and NFL and Monday Night Football. He is the voice of Monday Night Football on Westwood One. He's going to join me coming up at 2:30 today. McMullen is here. It's a Thursday with DeCecco for football at 4. The bets tonight with Jeff Nadeau, and One Thought every game with Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Let's get into the Phillies from last night, though. Another win. Well pitched, bullpen game, but some interest. And I say bullpen game, meaning the way that game kind of finished up last night. We'll get into it in just a little bit, but I want to get into it's a 3-2 game. This series with the Rays, these games have been close. You had some big moments in the game 2 nights ago where they pulled away, but it's 4-4. You have the big inning. But last night, you get the 2 runs early in the game. And it's a game with no Schwarber, so you have Stott leading off, and he goes 0 for. You got nothing really from the top of your lineup. But it's a night again where Nick Castellanos, baby. Nick Castellanos comes up big again. And, he had been kind of slumping for a couple days there. It's funny, my buddy and I go back and forth. Is he a good hitter? Is he a streaky hitter? I don't think there's any question that Nick Castellanos is basically the definition of a streaky guy. He was real bad the night before. Then last night, hits the home run early in the game, and it almost held up for the whole night. But that home run in the game, Castellanos with 1 on and 2 out, gives the Phillies that early 2-0 lead. Tampa comes right back in the second, and then Philly gets that 1 run in the 6th, and that's when I talk about a bullpen game. Because Wheeler last night, look, what do we talk about? The blueprint game? It was again last night, right? It was a blueprint game again last night. Wheeler to the 6th. And then some combination of those guys, we mention them all the time, a combination of Hoffman, Strahm, Estevez, Kerkering. Can you throw Alvarado in that mix again? I'm going to tell you why I'm starting to feel better about Alvarado. That's coming up in just a little bit here. But, Strahm last night, you get him in the 7th. Alvarado in the 8th, Estevez in the 9th. We talk about these blueprint wins for the Phillies. Close games where your pitching keeps you in it or dominates, and you hand it over to the bullpen and you get any 3 of hopefully 5 guys. Can we put Alvarado in that mix of 5? Like in college football, you have the power 4 and then the group of 5. Well, I'd like the Phillies to have a power 5, not a group of 5. I like them to have a power 5, and they would include Strahm, Alvarado, Estevez, Kerkering, and Hoffman. Is there somebody I left out of that mix? Probably not. Those 5 guys. And if I can get a combination of those 5 guys pitching the last 3 innings of a game, I feel like I have a really good shot to win. Now, that doesn't mean those guys are going to come in and be perfect every single night. They're going to give up a run here or there. But if I have a lead, 2-run, 3-run lead, and my starting pitcher hands it over to me in the 7th inning, if I have a combination of those 5 guys to pitch 3 innings, I feel like I should win that game 9 times out of 10. And last night, Wheeler 6. He had over 100 pitches, so they pulled him in the game. I think he had 103 pitches was the final line there. He pitched pretty well last night. Not great. You look at Wheeler, 6, Strom in the 7th, Alvarado in the 8th, and Estevez in the 9th. There's your blueprint. How many times they had a blueprint in the first game of that series against the Tampa Bay Rays, if memory serves me, that they got the pitcher got to the 7th, and then bang, bang, bang. But are we ready to put Alvarado in that mix of the 5 guys now? Are we back on the Alvarado train? And I'm going to tell you why I think I'm back in on Alvarado. You know, there was a time where Alvarado pitched that game, and you remember everybody wanted to pull him. Everybody said, what is Thompson doing, leading him out there? You got to get him out of this game. And if you remember, I came on the next day and said, look, Thompson is trying his best to try not to lose his pitcher. He wanted to give his pitcher a chance to succeed. Where everybody's yelling at Rob Thompson to get him out of the game, what are you doing? I liked Rob Thompson leaving him in the game because he wanted to show his pitcher that I trust you and how much you mean to me. You know, managing baseball and major leaguers, a lot of time there's a mental aspect of it that the fans just can't understand. You want to win every single game, and therefore the decision in your mind was, this guy doesn't have it today, get him out. Over 162 games, there's going to be days where professionals just don't have it, just like us. But that doesn't mean you can bail on them if you want to trust them in the big picture. So in the big picture, if you remember that day, I said, I give Thompson credit. He tried to show Alvarado, hey, man, I believe in you. We need you. And Alvarado didn't get the job done that night. He walked 4 guys, and it was a bad outing for him. It was a bad outing for him, and you almost thought they lost this guy. But I think Thompson showing him that he had confidence in him and that he believed in him allowed Alvarado to do whatever he had to do. You know, he took a personal leave of absence from the team, and now he's come back. And since he's come back, he's been better than the Alvarado that we had before the season, before the All-Star break. And if you remember a couple of years ago when the Phillies went to the World Series, Alvarado was a very important piece to that puzzle. And being a very important piece to that puzzle came with the Phillies demoting him and sending him down to AAA to go get some work. And when he came back, he was like a new man. In fact, not only was like a new man, he was the best pitcher in that Phillies bullpen during that 2022 run to the World Series. I know it's hard for people sometimes to think that, hey, professionals can just, roller coaster up and down. They're pros. They're either this or that. Obviously, Jose Alvarado was dealing with something. And whatever Jose Alvarado was dealing with, it forced him away from the game that he loves, and it forced him to leave the team. But it may have forced the Phillies into kind of recharging this guy's battery and getting him back to where they needed him to be. You know, we talk about in sports all the time, it's a long season, 162. Not all the games can you play like it's the 7th game of the World Series. But the weird dynamic between fans and sports is we're all fanatical. We love sports. We'll rearrange holidays. We'll spend money to go on trips to see our favorite team. We'll plan days around sporting events. The things we do for our children and family members, the things that we miss, all because of sporting events. And because we are so willing to sacrifice our own lives for a sporting event, when we do that, we want the team to treat it like it's the 7th game of the World Series. Fans sometimes can't comprehend that I change my whole day to come to this game. And you're going to treat this game like it's just another one of 162. And I can understand that mindset if you're somebody that paid money for tickets and it's the only game you get to. But sometimes the greater good is more important. And in this situation, I go back to that night where Jose Alvarado simply didn't have it, and Rob Thompson stuck with him. And I remember coming on that day and saying that Thompson did everything he could. He tried to stick with Alvarado. He wanted Alvarado to succeed. But for that night, Alvarado just didn't have it because there was more going on than just not having it on that night.
Mike,
but the fact that Thompson stuck with him, does anybody go back to that moment and say, man, if Thompson bailed on him there, the message he gives to Alvarado is, I don't trust you anymore. I'm getting you out of this game. And what does that do for Alvarado moving forward? I don't know the answer to that question. But in my mind, the way that Alvarado has rebounded from that moment to where he is now, I feel that he's a guy that Phillies fans can trust again.
Mike, to your point, in the 7 games since Rob Thompson let him stay out there, in the night we had 4 walks, those 7 games, he has allowed 0 earned runs, and with 9 strikeouts in those 7 innings, he has a batting average against of 125.
Yeah, he's been outstanding, man. I mean, he has been every bit, if not more, dominant than the guy he was at the start of the season. And in the first half of the season, Alvarado was really good, and then he kind of, slowed down a little bit right after the All-Star break, and to the point where you had that night where you had to pull him out of that game, because he just couldn't get anybody out. But you go back to those nights, and you think, they should have taken him out of that game. How do you leave him out there? It's a bigger picture thing. And, that's one of the things I really like about Rob Thompson as the manager of this team, is the steady hand. I talk all the time about what the role of the manager is in baseball. Like, people want you to be this X and O genius, and you left this guy in too long, or you didn't do that, or you didn't do this. The biggest key for a major league manager is to set the culture of the clubhouse. And do the players respect you, and do they want to play for you? Do they want to give their all for you? The other night, Bryce Harper, he doesn't hustle. And everybody says they got to bench Bryce Harper, and Rob Thompson needs to address it. Rob Thompson doesn't need to address it. You know why? Because Bryce Harper respects him enough to say, Coach, I don't need you to tell me I messed up. I'm telling you I messed up. I'm telling you my bad. It won't happen again. And that's because the manager doesn't chew these guys out for stuff like that. He picks his spots. And I'm sure behind closed doors, Thompson grabs these guys. There's a way you do it. There's a way that you do it. And it's, to me, what I think that I talked about this way back early in the season when the Phillies were right around when they were 30 games over 500 the first time this year. I think they're 30 games over 500 for the second time this year after that win last night. But to me, what makes this team 30 games over 500 is not the talent that this roster has. Because quite frankly, you're missing Real Muto. You're missing Bohm. You're missing Hayes. You're missing, who else is out? Sosa. Who else is missing right now? Oh, Schwarber last night. There's 5 guys that are pretty, I don't want to say they're all-star. Bohm's an all-star. Real Muto's been an all-star. Schwarber. Those are 3 key guys. Sosa is a key guy when Bohm is out because he's your second third baseman. You're on your third baseman. Last night you're on your 4th catcher, right? And you take a look at it and you say, man, how are they doing this? And to me, the answer of how you're doing this is the respect that this team has for Rob Thompson. I don't think Thompson gets enough credit. I think there's people out there that judge him more on, I see the guy that texts in here all the time, Rob Zombie. That guy's an idiot. Guys who don't understand what the manager in baseball means. If you're judging him on night-to-night decisions, you're missing the big picture. And the big picture played out right before you last night, and it's playing out right now. the culture that Thompson has set, told Alvarado, hey, man, I know how important you are to this team. I'm not going to show you up right now. I'm going to let you try to show that you can get out of this. And if you can't, I get it, big fella. I get it. We'll go back to you. We'll go back to you. And I think it was a great moment last night. It made me feel like, man, I think Alvarado's back. That I think Alvarado is a guy that now is back in the trust zone. Are you putting him in the trust circle? That was what I took away from that game last night. Like, it's a 3-2 game, Castellanos home run. Castellanos is what he is. He's either going to carry you or disappoint you come playoff time. But you need Alvarado. This team needs Jose Alvarado. They have to have him be a big part of this bullpen. And if he's not a big part of this bullpen, you might not have enough. But I thought last night was that moment, that time where you're like, you know what? I think I can trust him again. So we'll start with that, 609-403-0973 on the text board, 609-403-0973. If you want to get involved on the text board, are you guys with me on Alvarado, or do you still not have – do you have 100% confidence? I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know that Alvarado on his best day is 100% confident. At times he can, he is what he is. He's a guy who has a big fastball. He can strike out the side. He'll walk two, and wiggle his way out. But what do you guys think about that? 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was saying, Mike, a couple texts I want to give to you here because Glenn in Northfield says, I understand about Alvarado, Mike, but what is the difference between leaving Walker in games too long and giving Alvarado chances to work his way out of situations?
Say that again?
So Glenn from Northfield wants to know for you, he understands about Alvarado. What's the difference between them leaving Walker in versus leaving Alvarado in?
I don't know when you're talking about leaving Walker in. The times that he's left Walker in the game, Glenn, is positive. I know it sucks, but it's to save the bullpen. There are days where Walker needs to get out of the game, but you're like, I can't pull him now. I need him to kind of bite the bullet and save the bullpen. There's a difference between a starting pitcher and a relief pitcher situation. That game when everybody wanted him to pull Walker, I thought Thompson did a great job in not pulling Walker and saying, hey, Walker came to me and said, I can keep going if you want me to save the bullpen. So that's a different situation. You keep Walker in the game out of necessity, just save your bullpen. That is when Walker's struggling and in the third inning, it's 6-0, and people are saying, you got to get him out of the game. Look, over 162, a 6-0 game, I think the Phillies on those days say, all right, we're down 6-0. We just don't have it today. But I don't want to go to my bullpen in the third inning of a game. I had people tell me, you got to throw a bullpen game. You can't throw a bullpen game when you had the Braves the next series on the schedule. You had to have your bullpen as fresh as can be to enter that Braves series. So Walker's staying in that game. If that's the game that Glenn's talking about, I don't know that. But a lot of times, when you're pitching a guy and he doesn't have it in like the second or third inning of a game and your team's down, instead of pulling him out of the game and going into your bullpen and asking your bullpen, pitch the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth. You're asking 7 guys to come into the game that day possibly and pitch. Or you're asking someone to pitch 2 or 3 innings, and now that guy's wasted for the next series. So sometimes you got to live to fight another day. And that's the difference on that one, Glenn. I hope that answered the question for you.
Anonymous texter chiming in, won't leave their name, but they're saying that Alvarado is simply who he is. He's basically Castellanos. He's hot and cold. I don't think it has anything to do with Thompson leaving in for one game when he was struggling.
I disagree with that because Alvarado has proven, listen, he gave up the home run in the game 6 against the Astros. He's a fastball relief pitcher. You're going to give up runs. But for the most part, Alvarado has been a pretty reliable guy really since he came back from the minors that one time. So that guy sounds like somebody who either A, is trying to say, I said Thompson stinks and I'm going to continue to push that narrative, or hasn't watched the Phillies enough to realize that Jose Alvarado has been a very important guy. He was awful in 2021 and 2, And then they sent him to the minors. And ever since he came back from the minors, he's been one of the best pitchers, bullpen pitchers in baseball. And then out of nowhere this year, he just started to completely lose it for a little stretch there. So I disagree with that commentary as well. But that's
Really?
okay. We could disagree. I mean, it's just the way I see things differently. I'm imagining, and I'm not – you said the guy didn't leave his name. I'm imagining it's someone who just doesn't like Thompson and
No, he
doesn't want to give him credit to say, you know what? Hey, man, I'm not a Thompson fan, but I looking back, hindsight, maybe he handled this situation pretty well. Look,
Yeah.
Rob Thompson doesn't do everything great. He doesn't do everything well, but you can be objective and say, I don't like Thompson, but the way he handled this situation with Alvarado seems to be working out.
Yeah, I mean, the person sent another text to complain about Rob Thompson, but I wanted to ask you, though, Mike, why do you think some people just hate Rob Thompson so much?
I say this all the time. It comes from people who think that because they may have played the game, they could do a better job if they were the person making those decisions. Because, quite frankly, most of these people don't understand that the manager has very few decisions that he makes. This is all predetermined a lot before the games. It's discussed with GM Dave Dombrowski. The lineups are all kind of collaborated on, and people will want to blame somebody. So you don't say, this is Dave Dombrowski's fault that this is the lineup. We're going back to the Taijuan Walker thing. When I said, you don't blame Rob Thompson for continuing to pitch Taijuan Walker. Blame Dombrowski. He's the one that signed him, and then he's the one that makes a decision on whether he gets sent to the minors or not. If Dombrowski doesn't demote him, Thompson has no choice but to kind of keep pitching him until they collaborate it after the game. What did Thompson say? Now we're going to have a conversation. Of course he's going to have a conversation because he's out there getting roasted for pitching a guy he doesn't want to pitch.
Right, you're giving him and you're telling him you got to use this guy, and he's like, how do I use him?
Yeah, I mean, but that takes a little deeper thought than, hey, when I grew up, manager made decision, therefore it's his fault. I mean, it's just different. I mean, it's just a different, it's different. So I can understand if your mindset is, hey, it's baseball the way that I was taught it, then fine, you blame Rob Thompson. But baseball isn't the way you were taught it anymore, right? Baseball is not the same as we got taught the game. There are now way more people involved in putting a lineup together and deciding who plays and deciding what day you sit and deciding who's available and who can pinch hit and who can't pitch hit and what inning the pitcher goes in and how many pitches the pitcher can throw. Rob Thompson doesn't push all those buttons. All right, I thought you had more text for me.
Sorry about that. There was a little glitch there. No, the guy followed up and says, I hate Rob Thompson, basically.
Okay, at least he admitted that.
Yeah, he's
hey,
straight up
if you
said
could come
it.
out and say, I hate Rob Thompson, we know we can't take you seriously. You're too biased. You can't be objective. But you can come out and say, I hate Rob Thompson, and these are the reasons why. Okay, I have no problem with that. That's your opinion. You're allowed to hate Rob Thompson. I have no problem with that.
What's funny is, really quick, Mike's back-to-back text. Steven EHC says, I hate Rob Thompson. The very next text is Glenn from Northfield saying, I love Rob Thompson.
Steve and Glenn, I invite you both to come out to Charlie's tomorrow and have a drink. And we'll talk about Rob Thompson and hash out all the differences. But hey, you love him. He hates him. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think Rob's a great culture setter, and I don't know that his in-game management is exactly great, but I also understand that that's not all coming from him. So I can't 100% put the blame on him. But he's a part of it. He's in the collaboration of conversation. But I think Rob sets a great culture for this team. The players love him, and I think that's the most important thing about a baseball manager. Hey, coming up, Kevin Harlan from Westwood One Radio is going to join me. He's going to have the call on Monday Night Football of the Eagles and the Falcons. I want to tell you about my friend Rocco at Key Acura of Atlantic City. Right now, through September the 30th, okay, you could drive home a 2025 Integra for just $399 a month with $29.95 down. Need a little bit more room? Well, a 2024 RDX all-wheel drive, $393 a month with $49.95 down. Very affordable. Visit Key Acura, Atlantic City, Tilton Road, EHT, the small but friendly dealer. See dealer for details. When we come back, I am live at Chickies and Pete's. They're going to have the Monday night game here, the Thursday night game here at the Tropicana in Atlantic City. I was just talking to the guys. They said last Thursday for the opener, place was jumping. This night, Bills, Dolphins. You can watch it right here. We're going to talk to Kevin Harlan about the start of the NFL season. The voice of Westwood One is next.
You're with Mike Gill
And it just keeps getting better.
on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The Eagles and the Falcons play Monday night. You'll hear the game. Kevin Harlan and Kurt Warner, Westwood One Radio's call. And, of course, the Eagles, 1-0 with a win in Brazil. They're going to come home for Monday Night Football. We'll talk to Kevin Harlan about it right now and some NFL thoughts as the season is back underway. He's the voice of Westwood One Radio, CBS Sports, and many other entities. Kevin Harlan joins us now on the Sports Bash. Welcome back, Kevin. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Great to be on with you again. Good to hear your voice. Doing great. Looking forward to getting to Philly on Monday for that game.
Yeah, Philly. What is different about doing a game in Philly? I mean, you go to different cities. Is there something? Everybody hears Philly and thinks there's like a stigma around it. Like, is it a different feel when you're in town for an Eagles game?
Well, I think they're so knowledgeable, number one. They expect, you to be a pro and play to your limit. And that, I think, is not out of the ordinary in a lot of cities, but it's just a little bit more vocal. They've seen a lot of football in Philadelphia. It's a great sports town. Eagles are right now, I think people would say, in their prime. They've got weapons. They've got the quarterback. They're trying to rebound with the finish of last year, but they did get in the postseason. And the expectations now high, clearly, after winning down in Sao Paulo against Green Bay. And Barkley, I think, is just giving them a new lease on life in terms of, hey, here we got a guy that is elite. And if we can keep him healthy with that line in front, who knows how good they could be. But he certainly gives them a dimension that is pretty significant on offense.
You just mentioned Barkley, and obviously the whole thing kind of played out on the Hard Knocks this year and how that all happened. How fascinating was it to see that whole thing in the offseason and then watch it materialize in the game? Are we watching this game like all NFL fans are and saying, I wonder what John Mara is thinking right now?
Well, he's got to be because of what, he meant to the Giants when he was healthy. They were a different team. You saw what happens when you don't have a presence like that in the backfield and what it did to Daniel Jones. I mean, he crumbled, and all the Vikings did was just, pin their ears back and go after that quarterback. He couldn't breathe all day. There was nothing else that they could really throw at him. They've got a couple of talented young receivers. Neighbors is I think, going to be a terrific receiver in this league. But you take Barkley out, it can do so much. I just think it now narrows what that defense has got to do and put more pressure on Jones. And it didn't end well, clearly, for the Giants.
No, it didn't. And the Giants, 6 points on Sunday. The Eagles put up 34 points in the game. Kevin Harlan is with us. And, Kevin, when you're starting to get ready for the Eagles, when you get ready for teams, I don't know how you do your preparation, but I'm sure, hey, they got wide receiver 1, and here's their second option. And this kind of, you got Brown and Smith and Barkley. How do you kind of prepare for what this offense could bring you on Monday night?
Well, you listed the names that really stand out. On radio in particular, you're looking for the guys that are going to touch the ball, clearly, right? It begins with Hurts, and then it goes to Barkley, and then you've got Smith, and you've got right on down the line because they've got so much talent. Brown is among the best in the NFL when he's healthy and in his element. And so you're really on radio concentrating on those types of players. The day before I'll be in Minnesota doing the 49ers and the Vikings, and we're doing TV, as I will be for CBS. You've got to look at the entire roster. But on radio, you're looking at who has a chance to get the ball. And that will be my focus. And when you look at the playmakers for the Eagles, my goodness, it's as rich a field to look at as any offense in pro football. Barkley makes it complete, and they are certainly a team that you cannot disregard offensively. Defensively, we know they've got guys that can play on the back end. They've got certainly some players on that front line. They're one of the more enjoyable teams to call, clearly. And they play an Atlanta team that themselves have they got a tight end who's young and emerging. They've got a running back in Robinson who they feel very strongly about. Kirk Cousins will remain a story, the quarterback for the Falcons, that you're going to watch all season long if he can stay healthy, coming off the Achilles. There are a lot of great stories, especially early in the season for both these teams.
Jalen Hurts, where are we on him now in year 4? He had the 1 year he was very up and down. Then the second year, Kevin Harlan's with us from Westwood One Radio, CBS Sports. He's going to call Monday Night Football. Then he gets to the Super Bowl, and you saw him in that game, and he might have been the best player on the field that year in that Super Bowl game. Then last year, kind of an uneven season. What are we thinking about him as the trigger man of this offense in year 4?
Well, I think he's embracing Kellen Moore, the new offensive coordinator. I at least it has been reported, and all signs would point to that him and Sirianni perhaps did not see eye to eye on some things, and you can take that story for what it's worth to one extent or the other. The bottom line is that he's going to be there for a long time. They paid him that way. He's made a Super Bowl. We know what he can do when he's healthy. When he's put in the right element, he is as devastatingly good as any quarterback in pro football. That year they were going for the Super Bowl until he had hurt his shoulder and then later his ankle. He was in the running for the MVP. So that's how people think of him, and I don't think it's really changed that much. It just seemed to be a little dysfunctional last year for whatever reason. Began well, ended poorly, made the postseason. They were out. And I do appreciate the changes they made. They clearly saw some elements that had to be tweaked, worked on, and they worked on them. And so after 1 week, I think thumbs up on the offense.
Yeah,
I think after 1 week, you say that they beat Green Bay, and that's an incredibly good opponent. And so I think they've come out of the gates the way a lot of people thought they would, and I think the changes they've made and the way they've brought in the new OC, I think all these are moves in the right direction. I think they're more the team this year that we saw 2 years ago go to the Super Bowl than they were last year that kind of fell apart late in the season.
I'm interested, so far, Vic Fangio is the old, crusty, veteran, venerable guy, and the Eagle fans are loving him. I mean, he's getting asked questions, and he's just giving it to you real. Sitting down with a guy like that, yesterday he's asked the question, hey, is Devin White going to come back, or is it Dean? Nope, Dean won the job. Like, you don't get those answers too often. You talked about their defense, they're running the same scheme as they've run, but isn't it funny how fans, his personality, it's like, I like this guy, I like their defense. Whereas John Gannon was running a similar defense, and the Eagle fans couldn't stand him.
Yeah, Fangio comes with a proven record, as you know, Mike, and he's been a head coach a couple times in Chicago on an interim basis, but in Denver most recently, and then Miami last year, and they were a top 10 defense. And but he wants to keep these guys in a framework of how he believes it should go. Just as an example, Jalen Ramsey for Miami last year, and he was not 100%, missed the first 7 weeks because he was coming off a knee in training camp early in the season. It was probably not the Jalen Ramsey that we've known over the years that will probably make the Hall of Fame. He kept Jalen Ramsey on one side and did not have him travel with the best receiver. The new coordinator in Miami now is traveling Ramsey, and he's moving from side to side. I think Vic Fangio says, listen, this is what I've run. It's a top 10 defense. It'll get us back on track. I just need you to trust me. And I'm assuming those guys will trust him. His name brings a lot of clout. And that will be interesting to watch if people are feeling like they don't have the flexibility to do what they might want to do. But I think if they trust the process, and this is kind of like Belichick up in New England, who is handling that defense, it may not be what you want to do, but it's what the coordinator knows will work. And Fangio has a proven formula, and they'd probably be wise, at least out of the gates, to follow it to a T. Seems like they did that for Green Bay, and it worked. And I would assume they'll do that at home in their home opener against the Falcons on Monday.
That's the game, Monday Night Football. Kevin Harlan and Kurt Warner. You guys called Monday night with the Niners and the Jets. Everybody had the high anticipation for the Jets, but you watched the Niners. Are they still the best team that the NFC has to offer? You know, a NFC team has not gone back to the Super Bowl a year after they lost the Super Bowl in like 50 years. So they are going up against history here. It's going to be tough for them to repeat on those numbers.
And they've been back, here the last couple of years. They haven't won in 6 tries. So they are incredibly motivated. Mike, they've got a chip on their shoulder. They looked incredibly good on Monday night, and that was without Christian McCaffrey, the best left tackle in football, who had just reported a week earlier and was not in shape, and Ayuk, who's got a big contract, and he is still trying to get his game legs under him. Wait till they get to be full strength. Wait till they are what we think they are. And what I think they are is right now the best team in the NFC. Detroit's going to be good. Eagles will be good. Let's see what happens with Love in Green Bay. Rams, I think, are going to be very tough. Stafford in that second half, just phenomenal play against that Lion defense. He might be the best overall quarterback in the NFC. There's a lot of good teams here. I know I haven't mentioned Dallas. They always begin well, and then when it counts, it just seems for whatever reason to fall apart. So even if they go 14-3, I think the Cowboys will still be on notice until they get to the postseason and navigate those waters. Right now, I go San Francisco 1, Eagles 2, Detroit 3, Rams 4, and we'll have to see what happens to Green Bay.
All right, good one. You know the market. The Eagle fans are now big Kevin Harlan fans, telling everybody that the Cowboys choke in the big moments. We know it. They're going to play an interesting Falcons team Monday night in the whole Kirk Cousins thing. You get Cousins replacing Ritter, who was a young guy, but they got some interesting weapons there with Robinson and London and Pitts over there. I really thought he would come in there and give that team like instant credibility. Does he look like a guy that just, needs to knock off the rust? Or are we worried that maybe Cousins is at the end of the line?
And they did some nice things defensively. You rattled off the names that matter certainly on the offensive side, but they made the trade for Matthew Judon. A.J. Terrell was signed to an extension. I mean, they're talented, and they are a team that I think is going to give. They didn't look the part against Pittsburgh, and I still am looking over that tape and trying to. Now they held them to 6 field goals, so the defense did their job, it kept them out of the end zone. But I really do believe, Mike, that Atlanta at the end of the day could win that division. Now Tampa Bay looked good. Baker Mayfield is playing great. So there's a lot of football clearly after 1 week. This is the great thing about the NFL. You sit and you analyze. You think after 1 week you've got all the answers. And after this weekend, it could be completely opposite. But I don't think Atlanta was as bad as they looked the other afternoon against the Steelers in their opener at home. I think Cousins is still getting his legs under him after tearing his Achilles. And as we saw Rodgers try, but Rodgers was at times, man, wow. He showed exactly what he is, even after missing a complete season. Cousins at least got half of last year in. I think Atlanta will be a tough team all season. It would not surprise me if they win the South. But I think Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay clearly have got something to say about that. And then let's not disregard what Derek Carr is doing with the New Orleans Saints. I mean, they look like a terrific offense on Sunday themselves. That's some kind of division. Those 3 teams will probably go at it, and it may not be much above 500, the team that wins it, but the team that wins it could come out of there very strong in the playoffs.
And by the way, Philadelphia plays those 3 teams back to back to back. They'll play Tampa and the Saints after Atlanta here. Kevin Harlan is our guest. You called Jags and Dolphins for CBS television last week. So quick thought on the Dolphins as we'll have that game tonight, Westwood 1 here on 97.3 ESPN. The Dolphins, they're always tough in September, warm, night game down there against this Bills outfit that had to come charging from behind last week.
Yeah, they're in trouble because of some injuries, Mike. Their best running back, or they're one of their 2 top running backs, Mostert is injured. Achane is not healthy. Their receivers are not healthy. they went into the game last week really relying on the running backs. Now 2 of them are injured. And I think they were jarred a little bit by the Tyreek Hill pregame detention by the police on his way outside the stadium to the locker room. There were a lot of things moving there, and they handled it well. They had to take a deep breath. They fell behind early. They came back in the game, and they beat Jacksonville, which only missed the playoffs by a game last season. So Miami is going to have their hands full. And listen, I think this game means more for the Dolphins than it does for the Bills. They've got to go back up there when the weather is cold. So winning this game will be huge if they have any desire to win the division. Because trying to say, well, we're beat up and the Bills got us, and trying to win up there in December is very, very hard. This is a big game for Miami and a chance to go to 2-0. And then next week they go to Seattle. And that'll be brutal because you got to go across the country on a 6-hour flight, and that's never easy for any team. So there's a lot here at play for the Dolphins tonight.
Big one tonight, Bills and Dolphins in the AFC East. The Eagles and the Falcons Monday night. It'll be Kevin Harlan on the call. You recognize his voice. He's right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, you can listen to the game right here on 97.3. Eagles, Falcons, Kevin Harlan, Kurt Warner on the call. Kevin, it's always great to catch up. I appreciate you spending a couple minutes with us.
Mike, always great visiting with you in particular, and great being on your station. And thank you so much for the time, and I hope we connect down the road again.
All right. Eagles Monday night, and we'll have Kevin Harlan right here on the Sports Bash. We thank him. And, of course, the Sports Bash is live today at Chickies and Pete's. And, when the NFL season gets bad, you can feel a little difference in the building, right? I'm walking through today, got people saying, game tonight, what do you like? Who do you like? Who do you like? Well, I do like the Dolphins. I'll tell you that right now. You heard Kevin Harlan's breakdown. We'll get John McMullen's thoughts on the Eagles and the NFC race as it continues this weekend. That's coming up at 3 o'clock. Don't forget, tomorrow, stop out to Charlie's in Summers Point. You can see the Sports Bash Live. You can't make it to Chickies and Pete's today. See me out there tomorrow celebrating 15 years of the Sports Bash. We'll be there. Stop out and see us, have a drink with the show. We got Phillies tomorrow, little weekend series with the Mets. A big one there. Man, just talking to Kevin Harlan, I could rap with him all day, right? Hear Kevin Harlan talking football. Then you start to think about all his NBA calls and college basketball. One of my favorite broadcasters, Kevin Harlan. Appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate you being a part of the show. When we come back, McMullen in about 12 minutes from now on the Birds. I got some Phillies text messages I want to get to as well. We'll read and rip next. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN.
It's The Sports with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. We're live at Chickies and Pete's here in Atlantic City at the Tropicana. What's going on? I'm Mike Gill. We got text board open 609-403-0973. What do we got?
Mike, let's start right now with Fred in Atlantic City. Fred says, living in Chicago during the Jordan era, the players messed up and got behind. Phil Jackson calmly sat with his arms folded, let the players work it out. Thompson is so far ahead of the current player egos. Do the fans really want Girardi back? Good show, Mike. Fred in Atlantic City.
Thank you, Fred. Listen, people are going to have their opinion, and it's going to be hard to change it because if you're very vocal about your opinion and then it starts to kind of like show that you might not be right, you're going to go to extreme measures to try to defend yourself, right? So, again, if you're somebody who doesn't like Thompson and your reasoning is, I don't like that he uses righties so much against lefties or that he brings in lefties to face lefties, then that's a philosophy that you just don't like. But guess what? You could put any manager in that seat, and that's going to happen. That's the game today. That's the game today. So you don't like baseball managers. It's not that you don't like Rob Thompson. You just don't like baseball managerial styles in the year 2024.
Really quick, Thea in Mays Landing says, I love Rob Thompson. I think he's the best manager for this baseball team.
I think he's the best temperament. And whatever stock you put into what that means for the success of a team, I personally think that is at the top of the list of why teams succeed or fail. The temperament, the culture, the calmness, the trust, that to me, over 162, rules out over a guy who maybe allows a left-handed hitter to face a left-handed pitcher on Tuesday night in May.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Hour 2 of the Sports Bash starts now, 97.3 ESPN. It's brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop the new line of pre-owned and certified pre-owned Hondas online at boardwalkhonda.com. You got the Eagles and the Falcons this Monday night. You can hear the game on 97.3 ESPN. We just talked to Kevin Harlan, and he talked about, preparing for this game and the weapons that the Eagles have. John McMullen, Birds 365, weekday mornings at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel, set to join us now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Johnny Mack, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, that's the best in the business right there, Kevin Harlan.
Kevin Harlan, the voice
stuff
of Monday Night Football. And he said, as he's preparing for this game, that, yes, it is a little different because of the weapons. And I wonder, how that factors into Kellen Moore and getting ready for a game. We talk a little bit about, trying to keep everybody happy. But is that, the next byproduct of this is that 1 week you're going to look like this, 1 week you're going to look different, or do you stick with what you're good at?
No, I think, and Nick was talking about this not today, but earlier, in the fact that, you can go back to the season opener in Detroit a couple of years ago where Devontae Smith didn't get one catch, and it was all A.J., and the next week it was Devontae getting 7 catches or whatever it was. So they've been through this before. Week 1, DeAndre Swift isn't even part of the game plan. Last year, I think he had 1 touch, and then week 2, he went off against Minnesota. So I think, you're going to see it might be a different playmaker each week. And I saw Raheem Morris was talking in Atlanta, and someone asked him about Barkley because of the 3 touchdowns, and he rightfully, expanded it to all the playmakers, because that's the problem you got when you're game planning for the Eagles. If you want to stop Saquon, well, AJ's probably going to run wild, or Devontae, and it might be Dallas Goedert. Might even be Jahan Dotson. He brought him up. So it could be so many. I think it's going to vary from week to week.
Yeah, I'm interested, this secondary, which, Terrell's back. They got Simmons. How is this the kind of night where you feel like utilizing the pass game as opposed to utilizing Barkley first is the way to go?
Well, they have a lot of playmakers. I mean, Jesse Bates is probably the best playmaker at safety. So they have a great pair of safeties. You mentioned A.J. Terrell. It's a really good corner. So they have some playmakers. They have some good players. But Nick Sirianni was pretty clear. I mean, they were the only team in the NFL to win on week 1 with a negative turnover ratio. The only one. So you said it today, and it should be common sense. It should be obvious, but playing that way is not sustainable, is the term he used. So they got to clean up the turnovers, the turnover-worthy throws, the miscommunications between Cam Jurgens and Jalen Hurts, or you're not going to be able to win consistently the way they won in Brazil.
John McMullen's with us. Eagles getting ready for practice, so John will be jumping off here in just a little bit. They I guess their schedule is a little off because of the Friday game and now the Monday game here. But, you're getting ready for this Falcons team, which did not look good the other day. When you look at the Eagles defense and what Vic Fangio did, we talked a lot about Fangio yesterday, but would you, after this game, if they don't get the pass rush, is this a game that you would start to then become a little concerned?
Yeah, I would. I just got out of the locker room, was just talking to Bryce Huff, as a matter of fact. And, I Vic Fangio said it yesterday. Nobody's making excuses, but it is an explanation, and it went both ways. It was not only the Eagles' pass rush; it was the Green Bay pass rush because guys couldn't get their footing, they couldn't get their explosion, they were slipping and sliding. So it was a big advantage for the offensive lines of both teams, and I think you see they played really well, both of those offensive line groups. So. I think it works both ways. So I think everybody's fired up about Mekhi Becton. You got to wait a little bit because this week it's going to be Grady Jarrett, who's one of the better interior players in this league. They're probably going to go after Mekhi Becton, I would imagine, with Grady a little bit. So I would hold reservation on Mekhi being, the greatest right guard in history. In the same way, I would hold reservation on being Bryce Huff, the worst edge rusher in history because of the field. And the same thing happened to Kenny Clark with the Packers. I thought he was going to be a big problem, and he couldn't get his footing, and it turned out to be a non-story. So, yeah, you kind of give them a mulligan. I have, anyway. But if they don't perform against an Atlanta team that has a good offensive line, maybe not a great offensive line, but good, and a quarterback who's clearly not healthy, no matter what they say, and is stationary pretty much when he is healthy, then you start to worry if that can't. Yeah, I think it's fair at that point. But I got to tell you, Mike, if you saw the Jets fans complaining about their Week 1 loss to the 49ers, they're all talking about why can't their rushers be like Bryce Huff was last year. So it's interesting the different dichotomies of each fan base.
John McMullen, a couple news and notes around this team. Isaiah Rodgers says he hopes to be ready to play Monday night for the Falcons game. He needed surgery on his hand. I guess he broke a bone right at the end of training camp there. If he's back, is he back in the lineup?
Yeah, I just saw Isaiah. That's to be determined. He's still got a wrap on, so obviously there's going to be some issues and some healing issues. But, Vic was very concrete about the linebacker situation, right? Nakobe Dean's the starter. He wasn't quite the same way about Quinyon Mitchell and him staying outside versus maybe when Isaiah's available, him starting outside, then moving inside when you need a nickel corner. He wasn't 100% on that one. So I still think he's mulling it over. But if it were me, I'm not moving Quinyon Mitchell, especially after that Week 1 performance. He's my outside corner. And if Isaiah Rodgers wants to get on the field, he's going to have to start cross-training a little bit from my perspective. But it might be Avonte Maddox. It might be Cooper DeJean.
The other, I guess, I don't want to say surprised, but maybe Devin White was surprised. He said he was surprised that the coaches went with Nakobe Dean over him at the Mike position, but, I'm ready to go. But he says he was a little surprised by the fact that he didn't get that call. So are you sensing that White could be a disgruntled figure in that locker room?
No, he's not that guy. I've been saying that pretty consistently. Look, he's obviously disappointed, but he's been very attentive as a teammate. He's been very good as a teammate. And today, I think he handled it well. Of course, he thought he did enough, but he lost the job, and it's difficult, especially when you think about where he was coming out, his pedigree and all that stuff. But it's a long season. He's a play away. If Zach Bond or Nakobe Dean get injured. So the Eagles are probably going to need him at some point, and that's sort of the spin everybody's taking.
Yeah, I guess, you and I both before the season were not all that excited about the White addition for this team, kind of hearing some things from the Tampa side. And, then he says, I'm a little surprised by this. But you said, yeah, you shouldn't be surprised after watching Dean play there. But is Dean on I don't want to say borrowed time, but if he doesn't play well, would they hesitate to go to White? Or does he have a leash here before they would make that decision?
Yeah, I think he's got a leash. I'm not saying it's a year-long leash. If he continues to play poorly, he wasn't great. He was in the category, I would say, of the defenders that didn't play great on the slippery field. But he did have a couple splash plays, so I think that helps a little bit. But Vic spoke the way he spoke purposefully, as he usually does. He's the starting middle linebacker. It's not a 50-50 thing or he's the starting linebacker. But if he has one bad game, Devin White's going to come in. So he's got a lengthy rope, I would say.
Before we let you run here, I know you're heading to the practice field for the Eagles today. John McMullen from Birds 365, weekday mornings at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. I know we'll dive into the game a little deeper later on, but if the first impression Falcons, are you more worried about Bijan in the run game with Algier and that mix, or are you more worried about London and Pitts and their pass game?
Well, no, yeah, definitely the running game. After watching Kirk Cousins a little bit in week one, he's clearly not himself from a physical standpoint. Tore that Achilles in late October. So, you can say you're healthy at that stage, but he clearly wasn't the same guy to the point they barely use play action, and he's a play action quarterback. I mean, that's what he does. And they had him back in the pistol, and he's just not comfortable with that, and it turned into an ugly situation. Unless he gets healthy, and, Nick kind of mentioned, sometimes with those types of injuries, maybe you feel good one day and you don't feel good another day. And maybe he shows up Monday night and he feels good, and he's throwing for 300 yards like the old Kirk Cousins. And I'll revisit that probably in game. But right now you have to be far more worried about Bijan Robinson, who this team, I used to call my show Bijan 365 for 2 months leading up to the draft. But this team did really, really like him. He was one of the few running backs, not with the top pick, which was 10 overall originally before they moved up to get Jalen Carter. They weren't considering him there, but if he started to fall to that second first-round pick, they would have taken Bijan Robinson in the early 20s. They would have tried to move up and tried to get him. So they have tremendous respect for the player. They like him. And he's one of those running backs, and Nick compared him to Saquon Barkley today. He can beat you in the running game, the passing game. So he can beat you in a lot of different ways. And he's young, and he's got juice, and he's a really good player.
Well, it's going to be fun to and by the way, remember the year before, too, a lot of people like Kyle Pitts. It was like, if Kyle Pitts is there, would they pull in a tight end? Pitts really hasn't been the player that we thought he was going to be so far. We'll see what happens there. Bijan Robinson probably didn't get the touches you would have thought last year, but we'll see what happens there. John McMullen, the Eagles getting ready for the Falcons, as the Falcons, by the way, the worst team on Monday Night Football in the NFL. Kirk Cousins has not fared very well on Monday nights either, so something might not give for the Falcons. Philadelphia looking to start 2-0, I think, for like the fourth straight year, I think it is, for the Eagles. We'll see it Monday night. We'll have more on the game with John later on, and, of course, he's heading to practice now. John, we appreciate it as always, man.
All right, thanks, Mike.
There's John, and, of course, he is brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop their new lineup of new pre-owned and certified pre-owned Hondas online at boardwalkhonda.com. This hour of the show, it is brought to you by our friends over at Broadley's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating and plumbing service and installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907 or online at broadleys.net. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We're at Chickies and Pete's at Tropicana and Atlantic City. And coming up, we got the schedule. First look at this week's schedule. We'll tell you all the games, the spreads for the games, some of the games we like, top fives and all that good stuff. Plus 4 o'clock today, the matchups to watch in this game. Andrew DeCecco will join us for football at 4. We'll also got the Nuggets from Nick Earnshaw. And tonight at 5 o'clock, it's One Thought. Every game, Casey Joyner here on the Sports Bash. I got, when John talked about Isaiah Rodgers, cross-training him, I'm a little surprised. This reminds me of when the Phillies had Cody Ashe, and it was like, hey, this guy might play left field. And then you didn't play him in left field the entire spring training. And then you had to send him to the minors to go figure out how to play left field in the middle of the season. It was like, did you not think that Isaiah Rodgers was a guy that you might want to look at in the slot? Like to hear, like, hey, you might have to cross-train this guy. Now? What about when he got reinstated in the mini camps?
Yeah, Mike, doesn't it seem a little late to do that now?
That's bonkers to me. It's like when he signed, right? The first anticipation from everyone is, oh, man, this guy might play the slot. He's a little smaller. Maybe you put him in the slot and he replaces Maddox. Now, here we are, and it's like, well, we're going to move Mitchell to the slot because we want our best guys on the field. But would you not have thought to cross-train him in camp? That's a little weird to me. And then the other one with Devin White. Look, the Devin White thing is look, when he made the signing, I couldn't get anybody from Tampa to come on the show to talk about him. Like, the people that we talked to in Tampa, they just didn't really, listen, I don't really have a lot of good to say. Like, he's just not the player that he was. And so that was a telling thing to me. That's why I asked the question that I did about, is this going to be a problem in the locker room? I mean, here's a guy who said he was surprised that the coaches went the other way. Okay, I'm surprised, but does that mean I'm surprised that I'm going to let people know that? Or am I surprised I'm going to be a good soldier here? Is Devin White mature enough now to realize I ain't the player I thought I was?
And, Mike, that goes back to the conversation we have had about the Phillies, right, about how important that locker room is for Philadelphia. With the Phillies, if Devin White is going to be a problem in this locker room, and remember Jeff Kerr was on yesterday, and he suggested that Hassan Reddick was not the greatest teammate last year. Can you risk having another toxic guy in that locker room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, no, you don't want that. And that's one of the things some people, you talk about, and we're talking about Rob Thompson with the Phillies. That's one of the things about the Phillies. It doesn't seem that there's a guy, and that's why they got rid of Soto. Some people say, hey, that Soto trade, what did you do that for? Here was a guy, he wasn't a closer, but he wasn't happy with his role. So the Phillies said, if you're not happy with your role, we can't have you sulking, and we're going to ship you out of here. By the way, Fred and AC texted. I don't know what Fred's talking about. I was on Fred's side.
Fred doubled back around and misunderstood.
I guess. I mean, I was on Fred's side. I was agreeing with Fred that Thompson's a good manager.
Yeah.
That, no, you don't want a yeller and a screamer. I don't know what Fred's talking about, Fred. I agree with you. I agree with your original text. You must have mistaken me to responding to somebody else, I guess.
Yeah, I think the problem with Fred, if I'm reading his text properly.
I don't know. Are you reading the text?
I see the whole paragraph in front of me.
Yeah.
I think that Fred misunderstood what you were saying. I think that you were agreeing with him because
I was agreeing with Fred by saying no. You don't want a yeller and a screamer.
Right.
That Thompson's temperament is the perfect temperament for this team. And if people, not Fred, if others want a tactician, you're not getting that in today's game. Those managers are no longer a part of the game.
Correct.
GMs, front office people have pushed those people out so that they can have a voice in lineup decisions. Lefties against righties, righties against lefties. This guy's not playing. Here's the 7 days this year that this guy's getting a day off. We're going to map them out in April. All right, so you're going to be off on April 12th, May 14th, June 27th. Like those days, a lot of time for some of these guys, they're mapped out ahead of time. So, Fred, I agree with you. I hope you do. I don't know where you got that misconstrued. I apologize.
I think Fred might have mixed up because there was another text that disagreed with what Fred was saying, and maybe he mixed up that you were talking about that texter.
It's possible. We got a lot of texts today. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Mike, Jose is like a box of chocolates. Yeah, I guess that's you never know what you're going to get. I think that Jose Alvarado, look, there was a time, I was very tough on Jose Alvarado. I was like, look, if you're bringing Jose Alvarado and he's your best guy, you stink. This was like 2021 when they got him. Look, you picked up Alvarado off the scrap heap from Tampa. And we're then kind of relying on him to be one of your guys. He just couldn't throw strikes. And I'm like, look, if you're using this guy as one of your main bullpen arms, that's a problem. But since they sent him to the minors in 2022 and brought him back, he's been one of the best left-handed pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, and I think the thing that people overlook with Alvarado is that in order for him to be a contributor to this team, Mike, he doesn't need to be perfect every night. He just needs to be good 9 out of 10 outings he goes out there because it gives you the confidence to say, I can go to him in a big situation.
You got to be consistent. That's the thing. You're going to give up runs, but you can't walk guys every single time you pitch. You can't give up, runners and have runners constantly on base every single time and have to wiggle out of jams. And Alvarado, for the most part, when he's going really good, he's been very good at that. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SBLive. SB Live. Use that hashtag, and our show will pop up on your feed. When we come back, it's our first look at the NFL schedule. Week number 2. Who's on the schedule? Who's our favorite games? And what are the spreads? We got all that coming up. Next, we're live here at the Tropicana in Atlantic City. Chickies and Pete's, don't forget, they got the Thursday night game on. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There's 22 TVs that are just in my eyesight, and I don't even have the other side of the bar in front of me. I don't have the back room in front of me, but I got 22 TVs standing in front of me for tonight's games, this weekend's games, college football Saturday, the NFL Sunday. If you're looking for a spot to watch the game, I'm standing in it right now. Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. Coming up, it's this week's first look at the schedule, and it's next.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
328, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, your home for Thursday Night Football. Tonight, Bills and the Dolphins. We'll get into that game and the schedule. Our first look at the NFL schedule is coming up this hour, brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating and plumbing service and installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907. Online, broadlees.net. Mike Gill in the Sports Bash. And, all right. First look at the NFL schedule. We'll take a look starting with the Thursday night game, go all the way through Sunday night. We know the Eagles play Monday Night Football, and we'll get you the lines, the spreads, and everything as we take our first look at Week 2 in the NFL. Buffalo plays the Dolphins tonight. This one I know is 2.5. I was talking about this one a little earlier with the people here at Chickies. They said, who do you like tonight? 2.5. I said, I like the Dolphins tonight. Dolphins tonight at home. A little hot down there at the Hard Rock. I'm not a big Buffalo fan in terms of, I think, they may be a wild card team this year. I like the Dolphins, but I like the Dolphins at home in the regular season. I don't like the Dolphins on the road in the playoffs. So I'll go Dolphins 2.5, and I like the Dolphins tonight in Miami.
Quick question, Mike. I want to know from you, because we know Buffalo scored a lot last week. Miami didn't score a lot last week. So do you expect this to be a high or low-scoring game tonight?
Over-under, I would guess it's like 49-ish, somewhere in that range. So
right church, wrong pew, 48.5.
All right, well, it depends on the book you're looking at. But right there, around 49. Yeah, decent scoring game, upper 20s for both. Yeah, I think Miami, look, week 1, everybody chipping the rust off a little bit. So I think everybody's numbers are going to go up in week number 2.
I mean, I tend to believe it's going to be a little high scoring just because of the fact that I just think that the Bills' defense stinks.
Well, they weren't great last week against an Arizona. Look, Arizona offense, think about this. They put all those points on the board, and Marvin Harrison didn't have a catch, right?
Yep.
So you start facing Tyreek Hill, Waddle. Now, the running back situation there is a little bit of a mess tonight, but I'll take the high-powered Dolphins 2.5 in that one. Let's go to the Sunday slate. New Orleans and Dallas. Dallas at home. Both teams scored a lot. You heard Kevin Harlan earlier in the game talk about, he kind of singled out. Don't forget about their offense, with Carr and Shaheed. And if Kamara is back and they got Shaheed and Olave, they got some decent weapons on that offense. I like Dallas in this spot here, though. I think, the Saints come back to, down to earth. I think that the Dallas has won, I want to say, like 15 or 16 straight home games. So I got to imagine they're like a touchdown favorite here. Give me Dallas with the 6.
Nailed it, Mike. Almost every book but 2 has it at 6. The other books have it 6.5 for them Dallas Cowboys at home.
I like Dallas. I'll take the touchdown there. I'll swallow the 6 and take Dallas in that one. Kind of like the over in that one as well. If it's like, I don't know, 45-ish, somewhere around there, I'd probably like the over if that's the number.
The over-under currently is 46.5.
Okay, all right. I was a point and a half off. I'll still take that over. I think Dallas puts up a lot of points in that game. Tampa Bay, Detroit. Tampa's a sneaky team. People don't really know what to think of Tampa. Detroit, Kevin Harlan was on with us earlier. He has Detroit as his third best team in the NFC. He had San Francisco, Philadelphia, then Detroit. I like Detroit a little better than I like Philly. But where do we put Tampa on that list? Games at Detroit. Tampa had a big game offensively against Washington. Detroit, back and forth, overtime win. I'm going to go Detroit here, but I think it's a little, the odds makers giving Tampa some credit. I'll go Detroit 5.5.
You had the hook right, but it's actually 7.5.
Oh, 2 extra.
They're
points.
giving Detroit a lot of favor on this line, Mike, and in fact, it's actually a -110 is the value on it.
All right, so that was 2 points. That was one of the furthest I've been off on a game all season. I mean, I know we only had 1 week, but there's still a lot of games every week. All right, I kind of like. I might like Detroit still in that game. Could Detroit have the week where last week they got to a 5th? By the way, Detroit played the Rams in the playoffs last year and then played Tampa. So they got the same 2 teams they played in the playoffs last year. They're playing them again. Indianapolis is playing Green Bay. I'm imagining this is going to be Malik Willis.
Yes, it is.
So, is Green Bay a home dog with Malik Willis? Is he that big of a change?
If he is a home dog, how much of a dog do you think he is?
I'm going to tell you, I got an email today. I can pull this email up.
Mike Gill got an email.
It applies to this conversation, actually.
All right.
Where did that email go? It was the different. Here it is. It was the difference in odds from your starting quarterback to your backup quarterback. So Jordan Love and Malik Willis, the odds change is 6.5 points. So I would think Green Bay would be about a 4-point favorite in this game. If you take 6.5 off, Indianapolis is probably favored by 2.5. I'm guessing if this formula is right. My line would have been Green Bay 4. Take the 6.5 and flip it. Indy should be favored by 2.5.
Well, Mike, your math teacher would be proud because the book did open at 4.5 for the Packers.
Oh!
And now it's 2.5 at most books.
How about that? Yeah, I got an email today that talks about the different line changes for every. You know what the line changes with Hurts to Pickett?
Probably like 7.
5.
Really?
Yep. 5.
I would have thought it'd be more than that.
Yeah, the biggest one is Lamar Jackson, 7.5. Patrick Mahomes to Wentz, 7.5. Allen to Trubisky, it's 7. The smallest line change, actually, Carolina is a favorite if Andy Dalton plays, as opposed to Bryce Young. Drew Lock +1 with to Daniel Jones. That's pretty embarrassing. All right,
that's sad. So who you picking, Packers or Colts for this game? You thinking? What do you lean?
I don't like Richardson at all, but Willis is probably just as bad, if not worse.
I say Willis is probably worse.
I would say worse accuracy-wise. Richardson can at least make some plays with his feet. Willis now doesn't even have that component to him. So I'll go Indianapolis, but begrudgingly quarterback play, don't like either. Jets and Tennessee. No, Tennessee used to be the team last couple of years. They're a home dog. I take Tennessee. I got to imagine they're a home dog here, and I don't know that I'm going to go automatically that direction. But I think the books love the money on Aaron Rodgers. I got to imagine the Jets are favored here, like 3.
You had the right idea, Mike. The Jets are favored by 4 at all the sports books that are available in New Jersey.
Yeah, I think they like the Jets here. And you know what? Tennessee is a 4-point dog, you're saying? I might like Tennessee on the road at home as a home dog here. I have to go back to Old Faithful. I won a lot of money over the years with Tennessee as a home dog. I might have to go right back down that road again. This is a different incarnation, though. No Vrabel. I like those Vrabel teams.
Yeah, Vrabel was a tough-minded coach. We don't know about Callahan yet.
San Fran, Minnesota. Minnesota at home. Big game. They scored a lot of points last week against the Giants. San Francisco Monday night. Look good. Probably no McCaffrey. I got to imagine San Francisco's still a road favorite here. But give me San Francisco 3.5 on the road against a Minnesota team that I don't think is very good.
San Francisco is a 5.5-point favorite in this game. They do not like the Vikings, do the odds makers in this game. And in fact, the public agrees with them, Mike. 75% of the bets taking the 49ers and the points.
Yeah, I kind of like San Fran. I mean, I said 3.5. I felt comfortable there. 5.5, I might, go to that spot too, swallow those points, take the Niners. Minnesota's not very good. Seattle, New England. New England won. It might be a while until they win again. They are at home here. Can they go 2-0 to start this season? New England at home. Seattle's going to travel all the way across the country. It's a 1 o'clock game, so it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. Seattle favored in this game? God almighty, New England's not very good. Seattle's favored by 2. I'll take Seattle 2.
You had the right idea, Mike. So this opened at 3, and now it's up to 3.5 at the sports books.
So everybody likes Seattle.
People are jumping on the Seahawks. People like you do not believe in the Patriots. Win over the Bengals.
Okay, Giants-Washington, little NFC East, Week 2. This game, Washington got the doors blown off them last week. The Giants fared no better. Give me Commanders 3.5 at home. I mean, the Giants, I think these two teams, I like Washington a little more than I like the Giants. So there's the 3, and I think the Commanders maybe a little bit better for the hook there.
Mike, the Commanders are favored by 1.5 at home.
So they think the Commanders stink.
Now here's the deal. The opened at 2.5 has been bet down now to 1.5. The public came out a little too strong for Washington at the beginning.
Yeah, well, they stink. Right? I mean, that's what they're saying.
They're saying the Giants stink.
No, that's what I mean. The Giants stink. That's.
Would you like to guess the over/under in this atrocity?
42.
42.5. Mike Gill, winner.
All right. Too bad offenses. All right, Chargers and Carolina. Carolina awful. Chargers won last week. I don't know what to make of that win. They beat Vegas. They're on the road. Got to go all the way to Carolina. Definitely favored. Carolina can't be favored in any game this year. Carolina, terrible last week. Gave up 47 to the Saints.
That's right.
I don't know what to think of the Chargers offense, though. I mean, they don't, like, I don't know. You got Herbert, but what else do they got, like, that's established? Not much. I'm going to go Chargers by 5.
Chargers are favored by 6 in this matchup on the road. You had the right idea there, Mag. Although you don't like Ladd McConkey, you don't get excited about him?
He's a slot guy. I mean, he's not like, I don't know. He's not not a number 1 receiver.
No, but he's a guy who's going to get targets.
Yeah.
In an offense that, let's be realistic, they overhauled that entire offense.
Big time. Yeah, there's no more Keenan Allen, no more Mike Williams, no more Austin Eckler. That's a completely revamped offense.
Yep.
Which, all right. Cleveland and Jacksonville, both teams lost last week. Cleveland, no protection up front. We got to see what the injury for their offensive line looks like. Jacksonville at home. A little disappointing the way they lost that game. They had that game at hand, ended up losing. I like Jacksonville. But I don't know. I don't know what the injury situations is for Cleveland. I'm going to go Jacksonville by 3 and then look at the injury stuff a little bit later because Watson was so bad last week. But, they were missing a couple offensive linemen.
So here's the interesting thing, Mike. You're correct. Jacksonville is favored by 3, but the important note you need to know, 83% of the public money is going to the Browns in this game, but 80% of the sharp money is going Jags.
Well, it sounds like a lot of Cleveland fans are betting the Browns after they lost, and the real people, the smart people, are saying, you're idiots, we're going to take Jacksonville. Vegas and Baltimore, the game's at Baltimore. Vegas coming off a loss, so was Baltimore. I don't see the Ravens going 0-2. Therefore, I'm going Baltimore pretty handily in this game. Don't like Vegas a whole heck of a lot. Don't like the quarterback situation. I'm a bigger fan of Baltimore than I know you are. Give me Baltimore at home. I'm going to go 8.5. 8.5 feels good.
Mike, depending on what book you go to, it is either 8.5 or 9. This is the largest spread of NFL Week 2.
Okay, how about it? There we go. Rams and Cardinals.
Yeah.
I feel like these West teams, like, they battle a lot, and the Rams, like, upset these teams every now and then. Games at Arizona. They put up a lot of points last week. Rams lost a lot of guys to injury. They had some injury problems. They had lost 2 guys on the offensive line.
Yes.
So much that they had to sign Dylan McMahon off the Eagles practice squad. This one's a little interesting. With the injuries there, probably was about 4. Is Arizona favored? I'm going to go Rams 1.
So currently, it's the Cardinals that are favored by 1.5. This line opened at 2.5, Mike, for the Rams, but a lot of money came in, and people are a little wary about that Puka Nacua injury.
Well, he's out 4 weeks. You know, he's not playing at all in the game, so you don't have to be wary because, you know, it's not like you're in limbo. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, who else you throwing it to?
Now they got Cup.
And? Exactly.
Williams, nice player, the running back there. Their line's a mess, though. That's the problem. Their line's a mess.
So Cardinals are favored. Do you like the Cardinals in this game, or do you think Sean McVay pulls it out?
No, I like the Cardinals, and I like the Rams more than most people at the beginning of the year, and I think the Rams could be a wild card team. But that Arizona team's sneaky, man. They play tough. They were in a lot of games last year.
The Fighting John Gannons.
Yes, and with Murray, I think last year when they got Murray back, they were a lot more competitive. So I'll go Arizona in that one. Pittsburgh and Denver. This is the Russell Wilson. He probably not. I don't know. Is he playing this week? Have they announced?
He is not. He's not playing. They're going to start Justin Fields again, they say.
Is this injury related, or are they just deciding to go that route?
No, it's injury. Apparently, Russell Wilson still has not fully recovered from his calf. Which, did you hear the story how he injured himself?
I didn't, but last week, I mean, he's on the field, and you're wondering if he was going to play last week. Now, I love these things. Is he a game time decision? He's on the field. He's trying to throw. And not only does he not play last week, now he's not healthy enough to play again this week.
So the quick story is that Russell Wilson, he wanted to work out with the offensive lineman and pushing the sled, and that's how he strained his calf.
Oh, jeez. He looks old. Have you seen him?
He's not aged well.
He looks old. Like, he was the young guy before in Seattle. Now he looks like the old guy in Pittsburgh. He just looks like he has aged a bunch.
That bald head is not doing him any favors.
No, it's not. Denver, Bo Nix, not a fan there. Pittsburgh on the road, good defense, low-scoring game for my money. I like, is Pittsburgh favored on the road here? I'll go Pittsburgh 1.5 with a low over-under, probably 40.
So, Mike, this is the lowest over-under of NFL Week 2 at 36.5.
Yeah,
is the over-under.
36.5. That's really low.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are favored on the road. Almost every sportsbook has them at 2.5.
What did I say? 1.5?
You said 1.5.
It's in the right ballpark.
But would you take the 2.5?
I'm passing on that game. I don't like Fields, and I don't like Knicks. So
I'll tell you what I like in that game.
I'm not betting on 2 quarterbacks I don't like.
I like the under team total for the Broncos. That's what I like.
What's the number there?
17.5.
That's low, 17.5. But yeah, you're probably right there. Cincinnati, Kansas City. This game's a mess. The Bengals, I don't know what's wrong with them. Burrow don't look himself. If Higgins is out, they got to. I don't even know who's playing wide receiver there with Chase. They were the biggest disappointment of Week 1. Kansas City, extra time, played on Thursday night. I like the Chiefs 5.5, 6, somewhere in that range. I'll go Chiefs 5.5.
Mike, you just gave it all away. It's either 5.5 or 6 at every single sports book. Boom.
Boom shakalaka. I like the Chiefs, too. I think the Bengals were the most disappointing. I think the Bengals and, the Bengals were the most disappointing. You lose to New England, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
That's bad. Sunday Night Football right here on 97.3 ESPN. Chicago, Houston. I didn't like Chicago all that much. I wasn't a big fan of Caleb Williams. I thought his erratic, throwing, he wasn't very accurate last week. He wasn't accurate enough in college for my liking. This is a tough spot. Houston was a fun game last week. They got to tighten it up a little bit, though. That was a little back and forth. Games at Houston Sunday night. Odunze playing? I know he bruised his knee, right?
He is currently questionable.
Okay. Houston's favored no matter what. I'll go with Houston like 4.
Mike, Houston is favored by 6.5.
Oh, wow.
In this game. It actually happened to open at 3.5, but so much money came in, they had to move it to 6.5.
That's a huge jump. 3 points?
You're talking about 85% of the sharp money jumped on the 3.5 Texans on Tuesday.
All right, there you go. Our first look at the NFL schedule. And you can hear 3 games this Sunday on 97.3 ESPN. 3 games this Sunday. They start with the Cowboys and the Saints. That's 12:30 coverage, followed by the Bengals and the Chiefs, and then the Sunday night game right here on 97.3 ESPN. That's our football Sunday on 97.3 ESPN. Listen every Sunday for the Eagles and the NFL, and then, of course, tonight, Thursday Night Football, Bills and the Dolphins on 97.3. This hour is brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating and plumbing service and installation for generations. 609-390-3907, online, Broadlees.net. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. Andrew DeCecco has football at 4. The matchups to watch in the Eagles and the Falcons games. Nick Nuggets are on the way. One thought, every game, Casey Joyner, and then the big man, Jeff Nadeau, his favorite plays for the weekend, both college and pro, tonight at 5:30.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, 3:53, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're live at Chickies and Pete's here in Atlantic City, Tropicana. Every Thursday, you can see us here. Tomorrow, we'll be live at Charlie's in Summers Point. Stop out and see us today, tomorrow. We will be out on the road tomorrow. 15 years of the Sports Bash with Bud Lights. And, of course, we'll have David Spade tickets tomorrow as well. And 99 bottles, which, by the way, Josh, this year's 99 Bottles party, we told you it's going to be at Mud Hen down in Wildwood this year.
Yes, sir.
No bottles at Mud Hen.
It's true.
So we're going to be tweaking it a little bit.
Oh.
Well, 99 growlers this year.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So, it's more of the novelty of the bottle, but you got to play along with the brewery theme.
Sure.
They got no bottles? All right, we'll go growlers. So that's going to be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So we're a little ways off on that, but you can enter tomorrow. Stop out to Charlie's in Summers Point. First 10 people show up, say, I want to be in this year's 99 Bottles party, and we'll sign you up. This way, you don't have to call to enter. You don't have to hear the sounder. You will be one of the 99 people for this year's, what we're calling 99 Growlers party down at Mud Hen in Wildwood. Coming up, the Eagles take on the Falcons. Falcons, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Pitts. They got some weapons on this offense. What are some of the matchups to watch in this game? We'll talk to Andrew DeCecco for Football at 4 coming up next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get the matchups that he's looking at in this game. And what if the Eagles can't get to Kirk Cousins? What's the messaging there? Should they be able to get to Kirk Cousins in this game? And if they can, who is it? Who gets that sack in the game? We'll find out coming up next when Andrew DeCecco from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast joins us next on the Sports Bash. This hour of the show has been brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing and Heating. Call 609-390-3907.
Jersey 97.3 ESPN presents the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Andrew DeCecco, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
We're never satisfied. That hunger for more. that hunger for more. I have it. Everyone has it.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and Andrew DeCecco is here with the matchups for Monday night. It's a Thursday. Andrew's here. I think he just left the NovaCare. The Eagles just wrapping up their practice in preparation for the Atlanta Falcons. Football at 4 is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's bring him in. Andrew DeCecco is here, coming off of a Friday night win against the Packers. They'll now go to Monday Night Football, prime time again, and they'll take on the Atlanta Falcons. Some of the matchups that Andrew's looking at. He joins us now on the Sports Bash. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
All right, man. And we got Monday Night Football now, so we got to wait a little longer. It was Friday night, now it's a Monday night, so we're out of the routines. But let's get into some of the routines here and look at what the Eagles did well on Friday night, Andrew. They ran the ball. They ran it 26 times with Saquon Barkley, 109 yards, a couple touchdowns. Should he find more running room against this Atlanta front on Monday night?
I think in theory he should be able to. The Eagles' offensive line performed a lot better than I expected, particularly Mekhi Becton and Cam Jurgens, the two new faces on that offensive line, paving the way. You saw that combo block on the Saquon Barkley touchdown where they teamed up together. I think that there should be running room to be had there against Atlanta. And really, to take it a step further, I think it could also be a pretty big throw ball game for the Eagles, given some of their deficiencies on the back end.
Yeah, let's look at the Eagles' pass. Obviously, Brown and Smith, they're going to be, last week, I like Smith. I thought he would have the big game. He didn't have the big yardage game. But, Andrew, he came up with some big moments late in that game, kept the chains moving here. So is this a Smith game, a Brown game, or maybe both of them?
I think this is going to be a really big Devontae Smith game, especially when you saw last week they utilized him primarily out of the slot. And that matchup would be D. Alford, the corner for Atlanta, where he's very pedestrian. I think that Devontae should be able to get 85 yards plus in this one. A.J. Brown, he's going to win most of his matchups anyway. It doesn't necessarily matter who you put in front of him, but A.J. Terrell, the Falcons' top corner, is a really good player. So I think that he may he's obviously going to draw that assignment, and I think as a result, you're going to see a Dallas Goedert and a Devontae Smith really reap the benefits.
Yep, I like to hear that. Decent secondary. Terrell is pretty good. They brought Simmons into play, safety. This defense kind of interesting.
Bates is there as well. So they have two veteran safeties that I think they're very good at manipulating quarterbacks and playing that center field role where they can kind of give you some unique looks. So I think Jalen Hurts is going to have to really be on his P's and Q's and protect the football because they do have some playmakers on that back end that can take the football away.
I want to talk about the Eagles' offensive line, which you kind of touched on a little bit, some combo blocks, but Jurgens, his debut, Becton graded out really well, and then, of course, the veteran guys who have been there together with Dickerson and Mailata and Lane Johnson. What kind of advantage did they? Because Grady Jarrett, he seems to always play well against the Eagles. That Eagles offensive line against the front of Atlanta here.
Yeah, Grady Jarrett is someone that he had 3 quarterback hits in the game last week against the Steelers. He's a powerful force in the middle. Matthew Judon, of course, is another threat to rush the passer. He can affect the game that way. But I really like the Eagles offensive line. And to be honest with you, I'm going to take them more often than not in any matchup because I really like what they have. Obviously, it all starts with Lane Johnson, at right tackle holding things down, but I also was very impressed with what I saw from Mekhi Becton. And I watched the game back twice to make sure my eyes weren't deceiving me, but Mekhi Becton did a tremendous job. Cam Jurgens, yes, there was that bot snap, but I think by and large he really held his own, especially when the footing wasn't great. That field was an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
And I just thought that the offensive line as a whole really outperformed expectations given the newness, 2 critical pieces in the interior.
Yeah, I know the other day Kellen Moore was asked about the snapping. Was this just a one-time, hey, we were just – because you saw there was an exchange on the sideline between Hurts and Jurgens. Was that just a one-time thing, or is there something bigger than that? It doesn't seem that it's bigger, right?
No, it's not. It was just a one-time thing, working on communication. That's something that I really honed in on throughout the summer to see how that was developing, and they really made great strides, and I think that was just sort of a blip on the radar. You saw Jason Kelce he's not perfect either. He had some issues with snaps last season as well. It happens, but it wasn't a problem throughout the game. I think after that they were able to settle in.
We're talking with Andrew DeCecco. Before we go to some defensive matchups, if somebody has the bigger game, is it the pass game, a receiver, or is it Barkley again? Is this a Barkley night, or is this one of the receivers' night?
I think it's going to be a big receiver night. Maybe not AJ, because AJ Terrell is, like I said, is a really premier corner in the NFL. So he's going to obviously be up for this game, and that could impact his effectiveness. But I think Devontae Smith and maybe even Jahan Dotson could have they're going to have a benefit on their side, given they have a corner in Mike Hughes on the outside, who is a journeyman, not very big. He's about 5'10", doesn't run particularly well. He's been banged up a lot in his career. He'll be on the outside, and then the inside you'll have D. Alford, which is where I really think that Devontae Smith is going to thrive.
All right, Andrew DeCecco, at Andrew DeCecco on the X platform. We'll go over to the defense where pass rush was a problem, and Huff, that conversation. You had Graham get more snaps. You had Smith get more snaps. Sweat didn't really make the pass rush just wasn't there, whether that was the field or what. But should they be able to get to a statuesque Cousins on Monday night?
I do believe that they can. Look, the Steelers, they have a vaunted pass rush, so maybe that's not a great measuring stick, but they had 2 sacks. They had 7 quarterback hits and 8 pressures. So I think when you look at what the Eagles have, they should be able to manufacture some sort of pass rush, disruption up front, and they really have to. I mean, Bryce Huff really needs to get going. Obviously, he gets graded on a curve a little bit because the field conditions really affects edge rushers in terms of angles and leverage and things like that. So this is where they really need to get going, and they are going to have an opportunity to pounce on someone like Kirk Cousins, who is very stationary back there. He operated mostly out of shotgun in that game, which is a little puzzling, but I think this is a game where they get going.
Yeah, and if they don't, is that a concern? If we were talking on Tuesday that they didn't get to the quarterback, are you going to start to worry about this pass rush?
Yes. Then I think it's fair to start to question and have some skepticism looming over that group as a whole, because I don't make too much out of week one, good or bad. I think you're not really able to assess what a team really is or where they're going to ultimately go until you get 4 weeks of data to really base your assessment. But I think right now the pass rush situation, if you're not able to win, if you get blanked again on the stat sheet and you're not winning your matchups up front, I think that's cause for concern.
Yeah, fair comment there, Andrew DeCecco. Let's I got to get your thoughts on the linebacker. This has been the story. It was White out, Dean in. Then yesterday it was Vic Fangio basically saying, yeah, Dean won the job. He's the guy moving forward. But then he had Zach Bond outshine them on. Am I supposed to believe that Zach Bond is this difference-making defensive player? And now your thoughts on Dean. You like Dean a lot. I know you kept saying he played the best out of all these guys, so might not be that big of a surprise. But is this linebacking core now something that we don't have to worry about as much?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I was bullish on the linebacker group, but I always said that I didn't have a lot of concern relative to the pass rush when you're looking at the Eagles' defense. I thought the linebacking group was going to give you a baseline level of production based on what I saw throughout the summer. Look, I saw every practice someone like a Zach Bond get more comfortable in diagnosing plays, flowing to the football. He's a highly intelligent player. Nakobe Dean, the first 2 weeks of camp weren't perfect. He really struggled in coverage, and Kenny Gainwell had his number. But I think as camp wore on and he got more comfortable with he's more further removed from the foot injury, you saw him be able to acquit himself a little bit better, moving sideline to sideline and in coverage. And he's exceptional attacking downhill. So I think that's a really good pairing of linebackers right there. And look, I know that a lot of folks are like, well, I don't know that he's going to be this all-world player, Zach Bond. He's not going to probably have 15 tackles and 2 sacks every week. But all you really have to base anything on is what you saw in that first week. And I think that he's shown you that he's a player that can give you that can be above adequate. And you see what Vic Fangio saw in him because he stepped right in and was being able to make some plays.
Yeah, good breakdown from Andrew DeCecco. I want to get your thoughts, and I know over at InsideTheBirds.com you wrote about Quinyon Mitchell. So the observations there, and then moving forward, Isaiah Rodgers, he says he thinks he can play. What happens with Rodgers? Does he go back to the outside? Do they say, you know what, now that Mitchell's been on the outside, we can't move him back in? So what is your take on that corner area and the way Mitchell played in that game, and then your thoughts on him moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think if you're the Eagles, you want to keep Quinyon Mitchell on the outside as often as you can without having to disrupt or stunt his growth. He really excelled playing the perimeter. He has the body type for it, and that's ultimately where they expect to have him, and that's what he was drafted to be. Now, the nickel role is interesting because, and I spoke to Cooper DeJean today, actually, but, Avonte Maddox, he gave the nod to the veteran in week 1, given the Packers' deep receiving core. Avonte is definitely a step slow. He lost a step. I've reported that throughout training camp, but it all depends on where Cooper DeJean is in his development, and maybe you might see the Eagles try to alternate between the two players because eventually you're going to have to get those startup costs out of the way and get Cooper involved because he's going to be your nickel of the future. But I don't know that you want to move Quinyon off his outside spot right now while he's playing so well.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because it sounds like Rodgers thinks that he's about ready to go.
I think Rodgers will play week 2.
Yeah, so it looks like he sounds like he's ready to go, and we know Devin White. He today kind of said he was surprised that the coaches went the way they did. Will he be ready to go? Although not in. Do you think he'll be active for the game, even if he's not the starter?
Well, he was practicing today, so I would assume that he will be active. Although the Eagles do have 6 linebackers,
right.
So there's a chance where he could be inactive. He doesn't really play special teams, whereas Oren Burks and Ben Van Sumeren are core special teamers. So there's always that chance. But if you listen to what Nick Sirianni said today, if you listen to what Vic Fangio said yesterday, he's going to be involved. To what capacity,
right.
Whether that's this week or whether that's moving forward, that remains to be seen. But you have to think that they're going to find a way to get his speed and athleticism on the field. And furthermore, if they plan to move off of him at some point, you have to at least get him on the field and showcase what he's able to do because the last time anybody saw Devin White play was when he was with the Buccaneers and he got benched and he wasn't performing very well. So I think he will factor in on defense. I just don't know how early.
All right, Bijan Robinson, a high draft choice, not like a jump off the page year last year. Some people say, hey, they didn't use him well. Your thoughts on the matchup with the Eagles' run defense against this version of Bijan Robinson?
Well, that's where it's really going to be put to the test because I believe they gave up 7.8 yards a carry on average against the Green Bay Packers. So Bijan is a much better player than Josh Jacobs. So he's slippery, he's elusive, he can get out in open space, and he has really good contact balance. So tackling is going to be paramount. That's something that Nick Sirianni today said they're going to be focusing on because he acknowledged that the tackling wasn't where it needed to be. And to stop the Falcons' offense, which is going to, by and large, run through Bijan, you have to be able to do that. He gives the Eagles even more unique fits than Josh Jacobs did. So that's the player that they need to stop.
Yeah, well, then you got Pitts and you got Drake London, and I know London's not he hasn't
Mooney.
Mooney too. They added Mooney in the offseason, so this offense does have some weapons, and it'll be interesting to see how the secondary matches up with Pitts, a very athletic tight end. This will be a challenge.
Yeah, well, it all comes down to Kirk Cousins, and if he's able to get out and get the football out, or if the Eagles pass rush is going to come to play. Because if they aren't able to get home, Mike, there's going to be some advantages that I think, at least on paper, the Falcons are going to have, and which we outlined. But I think Kyle Pitts is another player. We talked about Bijan Robinson, but who draws Kyle Pitts coverage? He's a unique athlete. I believe he's 6'5", super athletic, can line up in the slot, can move him all around. So that's a guy that you need to watch as well. I wonder who draws him in coverage. To me, I would think the most logical answer would be Quinyon Mitchell, but that would require moving him likely from the outside on certain occasions.
Monday Night Football right here on 97.3 ESPN. There's the breakdown of the matchups there, Eagles and the Falcons, and, of course, both teams with playoff aspirations. The Falcons 0-1, Eagles 1-0, and that game's right here with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick on 97.3 ESPN. He's Andrew DeCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. Back next week with another breakdown here on the Sports Bash. All right, my man, we'll talk to you.
Thanks, man. Sounds good.
That's Andrew. And, of course, right now, Football at 4 is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Good breakdown. The one breakdown part of it is, the Pitts thing. He mentioned Quinyon Mitchell. That would allow Rodgers to go to the outside, and then he's kind of lined up, you would imagine, with Mooney. You guess Slay would be on the London side. Hopefully that's the matchup there. Bijan Robinson, a dynamic running back. But they got Algier, too. Their line is a little bit of an iffy. They're not great up front. And that's one thing we talked about earlier with McMullen and then again with Andrew there, is if you can't get pass rush this week and get to a statuesque quarterback, that might be a little bit of a problem. And then you wonder, like, what is the in-season problem of what is the in-season fix for a team that can't get enough pressure? You know, this team over the years has had, 72 sacks or 70-plus sacks a couple of years ago. Last year, they were still a decent, amount of sacks. I think they were in like the 40-plus range. If you're a team that's trying to find in-season sack help, that's a tough thing to do. Nobody wants to give up that. Nobody, now last year at the trade deadline, you saw like Montez Sweat, I think, got traded to Chicago. Chase Young got traded to San Francisco. So you have seen some pass rushers get traded in season, but yeah, that's a tough thing to say, hey, we're having trouble getting to the quarterback. We're going to have to make a trade. I mean, you don't want to have to go that route. So you're hoping that Bryce Huff really steps up, and Nolan Smith, we heard so many positive things about Nolan Smith in the preseason, in the training camp. Can he start to make an impact? Listen, I don't know about you guys. I can't sit here and trust Brandon Graham to be the Brandon Graham of 3, 4, 5 years ago. I mean, hey, God bless him if he could do it at 36 years old. Get to the pressure, get to the quarterback. But are you trusting Brandon Graham? And if he's your best pass rusher, look, I want Brandon Graham to be a situational pass rusher, not my best pass rusher.
Right.
That's where this game's going to tell us a lot, I think, about if I'm Howie Roseman, do I have to think outside the box on how to find pass rush this season? I don't know.
You have to at least figure out if the guys you have, like you said, Mike, can they do the job that you signed them up to do? We mentioned about yesterday how obviously it's a guy like Vic Fangio who said, I see something in Zach Bond. Let's bring him in. And Mike, you and Jeff Kerr talked yesterday about, well, if Bond was the Fangio guy, was Huff the Eagles front office guy, right? Was bringing in Huff the Eagles' answer to letting Reddick go? Well, as of right now, it's a hung jury, right? We don't know yet because after one game, it's hard to judge Huff, especially considering on a field like it was on Friday night.
Yeah, 609-403-0973. There you go. It's football at 4, and it's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Big game on Monday night, but you got a big game tonight. This AFC East matchup here between the Bills and the Dolphins. One thing, I'm looking at tonight, you got Miami at home. What's the temperature down there? Buffalo having to go down there. You get these September Miami home games, and they're an extra thing. So it's a night game, though. You usually get those 1 o'clock hot South Florida days on a Sunday afternoon. Is it going to, that could be a little bit of a positive for the Bills, but I still kind of like the Dolphins in this game.
The game time temperature is supposed to be 84, Mike, but with high humidity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You get a night, hot, soupy night out in Miami like that. I mean, down in September, not a good matchup for the Buffalo Bills tonight for me. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. So we got a bunch of football for you starting tonight. And then into the weekend, we got a triple header Saturday, a triple header Sunday, and then Monday Night Football, the Eagles and the Falcons. Your home for the NFL and college football Saturdays is 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up, Nick's Nuggets are here. Nick Earnshaw is back with another edition of Nick's Nuggets on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We got that coming up for you. I know the Nuggets probably going to make a little mention of Nick Castellanos with the 2-run bomb last night. Do you think they're in the Nuggets? Do you think they found a way into this pack of Nuggets?
100%. Nick Earnshaw will talk about Nick Castellanos.
Casty with the big home run last night. Phils are off tonight. No Phils tonight. A little Thursday Night Football in the prime. That means you don't need the go-back channel, right? You don't need that little go-back channel, which you can't even do on the prime. But no Phils tonight, so you're good. Nick Earnshaw, Nick's Nuggets, they're on the way. Plus, one thought every game from Casey Joyner, 40 minutes from now, from the football scientist and the athletics NFL writer, Casey Joyner. Stick around. We're live at Chickies and Pete's here in Atlantic City at the Tropicana.
It's the Sports Bash. Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Nick's Nuggets are brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort, Atlantic City. Get your game on at the Gallery Bar Book and Games. Ocean Casino for the football season. The Fanatics Sportsbook at the Gallery Bar Book and Games. I'll be there on Monday. Come on out there. Tomorrow we're at Charlie's. Today, you see the people watching the video behind me. We got Chickies and Pete's. You got the lighting here at Chickies. I counted 22 TVs within my eyesight, Nick's Nuggets. Now, when I went around the corner, there's a whole nother probably 30 over there, but there's 22 TVs in my eyesight as I stand in our broadcast location as we get ready for another edition of Nick's Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. There he is. What's up, Nick?
What's up, Mike? Nice to see you once again. And perfect spot to watch Nick Castellanos.
I can't hear Nick very well. Nick's is very muffled at this point. I don't know if it's on my end or his end or what, but all right, he said it's on your end there. Something's up with your connection there. I see that your mouth is moving, but I don't hear what you're saying. I don't understand the words coming out of your mouth. I do hear you very faintly there, so I don't know what he needs to do to try to get that fixed. But I heard Nick Castellanos. That was like the only thing I heard. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
There, now I hear you better. There you go.
All right. There we go. Okay. Nick Castellanos. We hit the big home run last night.
Yep, now he's he's frozen over there. Yeah, this is 2 days in a row with a bad job with his connection. He had a bad connection yesterday, I think, and today another bad job with the connection. I got to give 2 minus points. 2 points deducted from Nick Nuggets today. But it could be the fact that he wants to try to throw Castellanos down my throat again. He did hit a home run last night, Nick Castellanos. It was an all-speed pitch, and it seemed like I said I have no problem at the end of this year hoping that I am proven wrong by Nick Castellanos. I want to be wrong, and I want Castellanos. Look, all I'm asking for Castellanos, I don't need 480 with 4 home runs in one series. Spread them out. Give me a bunch of consistency. If Castellanos at the end of the playoffs hit 280 with about 4 home runs from the division series, because I don't want to play in the wild card, from the division series to the championship series and the World Series. If I get like 280 with like 4 homers over the span of those playoffs, I will say his streakiness was not a factor in these playoffs. If I get 476 in one series and 042 in the next series with 11 strikeouts, then we're going to have a little bit of a problem. We're going to say, why did the Phillies lose this series? Well, Nick Sirianni was too streaky. Not Nick Sirianni.
Nick Castellanos.
Nick Castellanos was too streaky, and it cost the Phillies again. I don't want that to be the narrative. I want to be wrong on this one. I hope that I'm wrong on this one. There would be nothing better than me saying, man, Nick Castellanos went from a guy that you couldn't depend on to a guy that helped you win the World Series. And you know what? It doesn't generally happen that a guy goes from being the reason why you lost a series to being the reason why you won a series. You know, sometimes like you just, hey, you're a streaky guy and you're either smoking hot or you're not. He has been very consistent. I mean, I think from July, August, and so far in September, or maybe in June, July, and August, I think he's hit like 275 in all 3 months. I think he's gone 275, 275, and 275 the last 3 months in a row. But the problem was the 2 months prior to that, he was like 179 and 202. So I give him a lot of credit. He's gotten himself from under 200 up to around 250, and he has been a big reason why this offense has stayed afloat at many times. He's had some big hits. You know, I was listening to there's a guy on X that posts like the radio calls of like all the different radio calls, like the Phillies radio and then the opposing team radio. And in the opposing team radio last night, the Rays radio network, they had the call of the home run. And the play-by-play guy on the Rays side, he's like, here's Nick Castellanos. He's, blah, blah, blah. He got 19 homers and 78 RBIs. He's like, last year he had, 29 homers and 104 RBI. And I'm thinking, man, he had that many runs batted in and home runs last year. He's way off the numbers from last year. That said, he's having a very solid stretch of games. All right, Nick Earnshaw's back. Let's get to the Nuggets here. Here we go.
I think we got it fixed, Mike. I think we got it fixed at this point. I don't know what it was with the connection, but we got it. We're here, and we got to talk about Cassie. We got to continue to talk about Castellanos. Big home run last night, and now that means for Knicks Nuggets, Nick Nugget number 1, the magic number has now gone down to single digits to win the division, Mike. So that's where the Phillies are at. So I will list off the 3 numbers that are important for the Phillies right now. Magic number 1. According to Phillies Nation, for a postseason berth is 8. Phillies' magic number to clinch the National League East is 9. And the Phillies' magic number to clinch a bye in the division series is 13 because they're in a fight with those Dodgers right now. So we're getting down to crunch time, and those numbers could be getting a little bit shorter and a little bit lower as we get into these next couple of series.
Well, listen, we only got 16 games left, so you're running out of games. You're 8 games up or something. What is it, 7.5 or 8 games up with only 16 left to go. So the magic number for the division should be really starting to creep down. I mean, look, the big thing is, the only thing keeping this division still afloat, the only thing, the outside shot, and the magic number being 9, the outside shot that the Mets win all 7 games against you. You play the Mets 7 times. If somehow they won all 7, you got a race. If the Mets don't win 5 of the 7, this thing's over.
Yeah, no, I think they'll be okay. I don't expect the Mets to win all those games, right? Like, could you imagine if the Phillies fell apart? Would that be worse than 64? It could be. It could be if the Phillies lost to the Mets in all those games and fell out of the division. And who knows, could have fell out of the playoffs. But I think they'll do it. I think they'll beat the Mets handily. That number is going to continue to creep down. Within the next week, I think they are going to be division champs. It'll be the first time since 2011. Hasn't happened in a while. But I think the more important thing about this, Mike, is getting that home field advantage in the postseason. If they can clinch the best record in the National League as well as in Major League Baseball, having home field throughout the postseason would be huge for this team. I know they lost a couple of games to Arizona last year, but we know how much this team loves to play at Citizens Bank Park. And if they can get home field advantage throughout, they got a really, really good shot to keep it moving through the postseason.
Well, listen, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you saying, you know what, I'd rather play on the road. Yeah, if you can get home games, Citizens Bank Park, the way that place rocks, it's the one home field advantage in baseball that you feel good about, but I will be the bearer of bad news, the gloom and doom.
Here we go.
Listen, I like to keep it real, man. They lost 2 games at home last year, Game 6 and Game 7. So just having home field advantage sounds great. You got to be able to close the deal out. And you know why they couldn't close the deal out? 0-42 with 11 strikeouts was a big part of it.
Here we go. Listen, he's been fantastic. Another home run last night to get you into single digits to clinch the division. He's been great lately. He's been your most consistent player for months. He has turned it around, Mike. Turned it around, Nick Castellanos has, since the beginning of the season. That is not the same player I saw in April of this year. It's different now. I have seen something. It seems like Nick Castellanos has awoken. He is Cincinnati Reds Nick Castellanos right now. That's the one you've been looking for. That's the one you've been waiting for. What makes you think he's not going to continue this through the playoffs? I know you've seen it before, but this is a different animal. It's a different time now and a different season. We can't be negative here. Last year's last year. It's a different year.
By the way, Nick Castellanos in Cincinnati, no. He was a 300 hitter with 30 homers and over 100 RBI. He ain't coming close to those numbers.
Yeah, because he had the bad start to the year. He's not going to get there. But right now, it's a nice feel. He's got a nice feel for the game right now. He's putting together good at bats. He's hitting the ball hard. I can't complain about Cassie, Mike.
I'm not either. I want to be wrong. I said I'm not going to complain about him. I just want to be wrong about him. And right now, I am wrong until I'm not. Until I'm not. He has plenty of time to prove me to be right, and he has plenty of time to shut me up. Right now, he's doing a good job. I'm in the wrong column, but when it counts, we'll check back.
I know. We got to keep you there. We got to keep you in the wrong column. We got to keep this as long as possible.
I agree.
Because the Phillies need him to do this. He needs to continue to do this.
By the way,
if they want to go anywhere in the
By the way, Johan Rojas hit 275 in August. He's at 280 in September. Am I supposed to say that he's consistent now?
No, that's not the point, Mike. He was look how bad Nick Castellanos was in the beginning of the year. He was horrible. He has completely done a complete 180 in how he's approached everything and what he's done in the last couple of months. Like, he has done something that I didn't think any of us thought he was able to do. We were asking, why has he not gotten a day off? Because he's been so bad. He's played every day, and he's just gotten better and been their most consistent player for an extended period of time. Not just a month, for a couple of months now and throughout the season. So he's had a good year. You could say that. Now, it's got to continue the playoff. We got to keep you in the wrong column. That's where he's got to stay. If the Phillies want to go deep, they're going to need Nick Castellanos to continue to hit like this at the dish, with his zero approach at the plate.
Agree. If they're going to win, it's because he does. I said before why you got knocked off. I said at the end, if he hits 280 with 4 homers, that's a great sign. If he hits 472 with 4 homers in one series and 042 with 11 strikeouts in the other series, that's not a good sign.
No, that would not be a good sign. Hopefully, the confidence stays there at the dish. So, we know baseball is a lot of it's a mental game. So he's able to continue to be confident at the plate, and it continues to the postseason. No complaints over here from us. All right, nugget number 2, Mike. Got to go into this Sixers arena thing. Did you see? And I was put out by a report today, a new rendering of the Sixers arena in Camden. I know you wrote an article. Maybe, hey, why not come to Mays Landing? The idea of New Jersey just seems to be getting a little bit more real and realistic for the 76ers. I mean, listen, you got the New York Giants, New York Jets. They play up north, and they're considered New York. All right, they play in North Jersey. All these teams playing in Jersey and then play in a different city. It'd be no different here. And plus, if you go to Camden, they have the facility there, and they would have the arena and the skyline in the background. Look pretty cool. Mays Landing, great idea by you as well. You put it on 97.3 ESPN.com. That was a great article. Mike, I'm starting to flip a switch now. Why not come to Jersey? The South Jersey Sixers? I know they'll stay Philadelphia, but I mean, hey, South Jersey Sixers, that helps us down here.
Well, are you talking about the South Jersey in terms of Camden? You would rather the Camden location, or do you like the idea of being down the shore?
I like both. I probably lean Camden because you're close enough to the city where it's like it's not egregious. You know what I mean? I know other stadiums are like, say, 30, 40 minutes outside of the actual town that they represent, but I think Camden would make the most sense. Now, the Mays Landing thing, not a bad idea, but it's a little far out of reach.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I say Mays Landing only because, the horse racing track out there is in, shambles. That place needs to be torn down. Right. It's time for that thing to go. It's got 250 acres that you can make it like the Sixers could have their own zip code out there, really. I mean, they could own the whole, they don't even have to call it, they could call it like Sixers Town because of the way that it's set up out there. They could have like their own area out there. Now, you could do it on Bader Field and have the skyline in the background. You'd be on the water, but Mays Landing is a closer drive to Philly. So I was being cognizant of that. It's a straight shot, 45 minutes from Philly's Bridges. From the Wells Fargo Center to the Atlantic City Racetrack is like 47 miles. So you can literally get over that bridge, straight shot down, get off the exit, and get right in there, bang, and head right back home, 45 minutes. And as you said, a lot of teams now, the Atlanta Braves play like 20 minutes outside of Atlanta. The Florida Panthers play like an hour outside of Miami, maybe even a little further, like an hour and 20 minutes outside. The Dallas Cowboys play an hour away from Dallas. The Chicago Bears, they're moving to Arlington, Illinois. They're going to be about 40 minutes outside. The 49ers, they're in Santa Clara. That's like an hour outside of San Francisco. So there are many
LA
teams.
too, right?
There are
LA
many.
too.
L.A. plays in Inglewood, the Clippers. So there are many teams that have a home city moniker but don't play in that city. The Camden thing, look, I don't know enough about the area in terms of getting in and getting out. I saw the renderings. It looks cool. It's right on the waterfront there. So that element of it is neat. I just don't know what the traffic, look, and I get it. Mays Landing, the traffic would probably be brutal to get in and out, but I do think it's workable around there. That Leipzig Avenue out in Mays Landing, it's a pretty wide street. There's a couple exits you can get off exit 9 to get there. There's some back ways you can get. Now, you don't want to take a back way a lot of times, but, I think the locals would be able to get there kind of early enough and figure their way around. If you're coming from Philly, look, it's a far-fetched idea, but I do think the land area would actually be something that professional teams are looking for. If you look at there was a team today that just announced they're moving somewhere. Who was it? The Carolina Hurricane, I think, in the NHL. They just announced they're moving somewhere, and it's going to be like Raleigh Town, where they're basically going to own this whole area. It's almost thinking of like, I know Wrigley Field is right in the city, but that Wrigleyville area where they own like all of the area down there, like if you took the Atlantic City racetrack and put an arena there, you could put bars and restaurants and shops and hotels, and the Sixers could own all of that land and build their own stuff and that's what these teams want to do. I don't know if there's 16 acres that they're building that they're talking about in Camden. 16 acres versus 250 acres. That's a lot of meat left on the bone.
Yeah, no, and the thing with Camden, it's because the practice facility is there, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's the big reason, and they want to have everything kind of in one spot. And we've seen teams. You're definitely correct on this. They want to build kind of their own town in a sense, right? We're seeing it in Atlanta. They want to have shops there. They want to build it up. This, I think, they want to put apartment complexes as well around the stadium. So they're trying to build up the waterfront. That's the idea. They've been trying to do that with Penn's Landing as well. Because remember, the Phillies were going to move to Penn's Landing. That was thrown out there back in the day. So that was an option. It just seems like, though, Mike, that the Center City thing has really just fallen apart. I mean, that's just what it seems like at this point. The fact New Jersey keeps getting pushed out there and that the Sixers are seriously considering it, it just seems more realistic that that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the fact it's in Camden, it's right there. Now, the transportation, that's interesting because you're coming right over the bridge. You get right off, you're right at the waterfront. Right over the Ben Franklin, the waterfront's right there. And then you also have the public transportation with the PACO speed lines there, too. So, you have all of these different angles. That's why I could see them really considering this coming over to this side of the bridge.
Yeah, by the way, Bader Field, too, is 142 acres. So you're going, again, you're talking about you could build it's a little smaller than the racetrack, but 142 acres, you could have Sixers Town. You could have an arena with parking and garages and shopping and hotels and bars and restaurants and entertainment. You can own, if the Sixers said, we want to buy Bader Field, like I said, again, it's far-fetched. It would not happen. But my point is the land size is bigger at Bader Field and at the Atlantic City racetrack than the proposed spot with Camden, which is only 16 acres. Now, with the practice facility being right there in Camden, they're surely not going to have practice in Camden and play games in Mays Landing. But I do think that there are more options than just the ones like Delaware. They threw out a proposal as well to go play on the Wilmington waterfront there. I don't know that site. I'm not familiar with it. I certainly wouldn't be a fan of that. I'm not a fan of the downtown thing for any other reason that I don't want to drive into Center City to go to a game. If you're going to do it, keep it where it is. If you're going to move and you want your own place, I think the best option is you want to be on the waterfront? Be on the waterfront at the Navy Yard or be on the waterfront in South Philly, right? I mean, there's plenty of vacant buildings and lots down there that can be torn down and refurbished and redeveloped. But if you want to move to the Jersey side, there's more options than just Camden.
Yeah, there definitely is. And, you could stay in the complex area if you go to the Navy Yard, right? There's closer areas to where they're at now. And they want to do this before the end of the year. because they've given themselves a timeline before the end of the year. They want to get this done before 2025.
They want to break ground so that they can be ready to go into a new arena when their lease ends in the Wells Fargo Center, which is 2031. Sorry.
Yes, 3031. Oh, we're getting we're going way down in the line. But no, it's fascinating to see how this is all going to shake out because of the time constraints. Now we're in September. We're getting close to the end of the year. They have to make a decision themselves. They just want to make a decision before 25. I wonder if they end up just staying where they're at and, making an agreement with the Flyers. But I feel like they're too adamant about moving out. I don't think the Center City thing is going to work. The Wilmington idea is good because they also have their G League team down there, right around that area. So the Blue Coats are in that area. Blue Rocks, Nationals affiliate, single A, they're down there too. Places I know pretty well. And I don't know if the Wilmington thing would work, but South Jersey, I could see that being a very real possibility with how everything's being reported and put out there right now. Very fascinating. All right, before we wrap up, nugget number 3, we got to talk about Hassan Reddick. Another report coming out saying that the Jets are essentially going to have to trade Hassan Reddick at this point. He's not going to report. I think Hassan Reddick, Mike, butchered this whole situation completely. I don't think he's going to get anywhere near the contract he thinks, especially now with how everything turned out for him in New York with the Jets. But my goodness, Hassan Reddick being traded again. Howie Roseman, good job on him for getting out of that situation. But the Jets now find themselves where they're unable to have a star player on their defense who they were counting on.
Well, the Eagles could use him, too. After Monday night, if they don't get any pressure again, you're going to start wondering, man, why did we give up Hassan Reddick, or should we have made that trade? I know they got Huff in return, not in the trade, but they ended up signing him to basically replace him. And if they don't get pressure Monday night, I would talk about this before you came on with the Nuggets here, Nick, is what do you do? Like, if you look at your team and start to realize, man, we don't have any pass rush. It's hard to get in-season pass rush, So the Reddick thing, he was in a tough spot. I mean, he had 16 sacks the 1 year. Last year he has 11, and he's on the last year of a deal, so he wants to get paid. And the Eagles are saying, well, you know what? I think we got your best years, and you're getting older. I don't want to pay you for less years. I think you're still a good player. We're paying you to be a pretty good player, but you want to be paid to be a great player, and we're not sure you're still a great player. We still think you're a good player. So if you want to stay and play as a good player, great. If you want to be paid like a great player, I don't think we see it, and we're going to have to move on. So his age has put him in a tough spot to get the money that he wants.
Yep, exactly. That's the entire point. I just think, though, the Eagles, he probably would have done the same thing he's done to the Jets. He probably wouldn't have reported, probably would have made a fit, and it would have been that. So, it's very fascinating that, how he makes this trade. They bring in essentially his replacement. It was basically a swap with the Jets signing Huff out of free agency. They're going to need more from him, though. They need to generate more pressure than they did in week 1. I'm with you there. But Hassan Reddick, I think he would have done the same thing with the Eagles, and it wouldn't have mattered if you kept him because he would have held out anyway, and the Eagles were not going to give him the money, so that's why they traded him.
Yeah, I know that it looks like, hey, why didn't you just keep him and try to work something out? But, yeah, you got picks in return, and the Eagles decided, look, we're not going to pay him, so let's get something for him. And it helped that they had a target of somebody that they like to replace him. Now, that guy's not working out so far. It's early. We'll see. Well, good. Real quick on the Sixer thing. I want to throw this into the mix. You could potentially, and I don't know the train and all that stuff, like people that know the train. There is a train station in Egg Harbor City that's 10 minutes from the Atlantic City Racecourse. So hypothetically, you could have shuttles that run from there to the racecourse. It's a 10-minute drive from. So if you took the train from 30th Street and got dropped off at Egg Harbor City, there's a 10-minute ride from there. So, if the Sixers, this isn't happening, but I'm just saying hypothetically, that could help the people that want to take the train from Philly and not have to drive here. There's a train station in Absecon and Hamilton, but the Egg Harbor City one, I think, is the closest one that could get you there. There's also a rail line in Atlantic City, and I was saying, part of the thought was, hey, if you're from the city and you don't want to drive out there, you have like a jitney service that drives you from Atlantic City to the arena every night and drops you off at a meeting, something like that. So there are ways to try to keep the traffic down if you really wanted to pitch this idea, which doesn't seem like it would really happen. The only person who would be pitching it would be me.
It's all right, Mike. It's not a bad thought. Listen, it could work. We've had to go over the bridge for years. We could have some Pennsylvanians come over the bridge on our side of it.
Right. All these Pennsylvanians are like, oh, I'm not going over the bridge for a game. I said, oh, look, I've had to do my whole life. Like, it's not that big. Oh, there's tolls, there's bridges. I said, yeah, the same tolls and bridges I pay every single time I go to a game. Get out of here. All right, there's Nick's Nuggets.
Welcome to New Jersey.
Welcome to New Jersey. Nick's Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. He's back again tomorrow with another edition of the Nuggets here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, if you missed earlier, my conversation with Kevin Harlan. If you're watching the video, go back on the video to the 2 o'clock hour and listen to Kevin Harlan's thoughts on the Eagles. But when we come back, it's One Thought Every Game with Casey Joyner from The Athletic. And that's next, right here on the Sports Bash.
This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
5 o'clock hour, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're live at Chickies and Pete's, and we'll be here every Thursday for the football season at Tropicana in Atlantic City. They're having bourbon and cigars, the perfect pairing. October 17th, 6:30. Tickets are $60 pre-sale, $75 at the door. So you're going to get those tickets ahead of time. If you're watching on the live video, you can check this out. There it is, Bourbon and Cigars, Chickies and Pete's. That's where we are, live today and every Thursday for the football season. And we're getting ready Thursday Night Football tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Earlier today, we had Kevin Harlan on the show. He gave us his thoughts on the Eagles. We're going to get one thought on every game for week number 2 with Casey Joyner from The Athletic, as he is back on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. And, the Eagles take on the Falcons on Monday night, and let's dive into that one a little bit here before we look at the week 2 schedule. And, Philadelphia, that offense, 34 points on that weird track out in Brazil. And we take a look at what Saquon Barkley was able to do in that game. Should he be able to find the yards against this Atlanta defense as we start there on a Thursday with Casey Joyner?
Yeah, here's the thing about Barkley. They ran a lot of inside zone in that game, and inside zone is really just a basic staple play. Every team pretty much runs it. But it's easy to block, and it's all just straightforward. Now, don't have a lot of lateral movement. You're just going to go straight forward and hit your guy. It's a zone play, but it's a lot of vertical blocking. Point to that is Saquon Barkley could do a lot more than that. And Kellen Moore knows this, and obviously Saquon knows this. And I think they just said, look, we're on an ice rink down here. This thing is slippery. Let's just get straight ahead. Let's do direct movements and see if Packers can hold their ground that the Packers couldn't. I think you're going to see Marco's making some moves on that field that you ought not to be able to make. He did one cutback on a 34-yard run on an inside zone play where he cut it back all the way to the left side. Like, how do you make that play on that field at that speed? The guy was showing his fantastic vision and speed and just all the cutting ability you expect. I think if you combine that with Kellen Moore now being able to open the playbook, yeah, I think it'd be a $150 day for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously you got Brown and Smith. That's always going to be a conversation that you and I have. But is it more conducive to just say, hey, I don't think they can stop us on the ground, because they do have a decent – their secondary is interesting, Atlanta.
Yeah, their second. That's the thing. If you had to pick a game where you said, okay, because I thought that the Eagles brought in Kellen Moore not to be a passing guy, even though you have the whole McCarthy thing. All he wants to do is throw the ball. I think they brought him in to run the ball. And last week, they were running the ball early and often. But you look at this matchup and you go, Justin Simmons is bad in coverage. Jesse Bates, as good as he is in a lot of ways, he only yellow rated in coverage. They're not very great against downfield, against long passes. I've got A.J. Terrell, their right cornerback. I've got him rated as a green-rated quarterback facing A.J. Brown. I mean, they could switch over and get Smith in it potentially, but there's no red-rated cornerbacks or red-rated safeties in their secondary. If you had to pick a game where you said, okay, the Eagles say, all right, we want to show the world that we can throw the ball, I think this would be the game to still think going to run the ball a lot because you've got Barkley playing that well. And you want to get the creativity going with him, you can do it. But I think if there's a game that the Jalen could throw 35 passes also, I think this could be it.
Offensive line, Eagles always seem to win up there. What's that matchup look like against this Atlanta pass rush? Philadelphia's line generally thought to be one of the top 2 or 3 in football.
Yeah, it is. And mind you, they didn't, last week it's tough to grade the pass blocking just because of that field and such. But the Falcons pass rush, it's solid. It's okay. The thing that gets me about that is that also mentioned those grades. I've got Atlanta rated as a red-rated rush defense because I don't like to make changes really early in the season. I like make big changes. I could have made a case to make them a yellow-rated run defense. If that's the case, then again, we're going to say we're going to go ahead and run the ball and make that pass rush, make them think about what they're going to do in the pass rush and things. Because last week they had okay numbers pass rushing wise, but yeah, you're doing it against Pittsburgh, you're doing it against the backup quarterback. I think that Atlanta's going to have to look at things differently because if you pass rush Hurts too difficult, if you go after him too much and you lose contain, I mean, this guy's going to run for a ton of yards too. So I think Atlanta's going to have to sit back and play a bend but don't break defense, which I don't think will work in this one.
Casey Joyner, one thought every game. Let's flip it over. If the Eagles don't get pass rush, should they be able to get pass rush this week against Atlanta? Cousins doesn't move well. I would imagine if they don't get pass rush this week, you got to start wondering about their pass rush. But should they be able to dial up some heat this week?
Yeah, the Falcons gave up pass rush 32.1% of dropbacks last week, the seventh worst in the week. You should be able to. There's a clip that's going around on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, where the Falcons had 5 guys blocking 3 rushers, and they blew it entirely. I mean, there were 2 unblocked Steelers get in there, or barely blocked Steelers get in there, and they're only rushing 3 versus 5. It's just terrible communication. They've got personnel issues up front. They've got communication issues up front. It's one of those things where, maybe that's why you want to. It's not. I don't think I'm going to put a backup quarterback in there, but you're talking about Cousins taking a lot of punishment and things. So yeah, the Steelers are one of the best pass rushers in the league. Really, though, if you're Philadelphia, you're thinking, look, we didn't play well last week against the field. We're going to find out this week if they do have a pass rush because this is a team they ought to be able to get 3 sacks against.
Yeah, I know there's no T.J. Watt on this team, but we'll see if Bryce Huff can get going. And, by the way, Jalen Carter in the middle of the line there, can he get themselves going? Zach Bond had a game for the ages. Nakobe Dean is the linebacker now. Devin White, they said, nope, you're not coming back. This is Dean's job now. You got that matchup with Kyle Pitts, or do you go somebody else in that matchup there?
Kyle Pitts. I mean, they still don't know what to do with Kyle Pitts. I mean, they're all he's on one of my fantasy teams, and it's just pulling your hair out as to whether to start the guy every week. If I'm looking at their matchup, you look at the matchups, though. I mean, their matchup, honestly, Slays has the worst numbers in the secondary. So if you had to pick a matchup they want to go after, that would be the one. If I'm them, I mean, it's. After last week, honestly, after seeing how they looked last week, if I'm Atlanta, I'm going, I just want to find some things that work because they didn't find anything that worked last week. I just want to find some things that work. And I think that leads less towards we're going to try personnel and more towards let's try and put together a scheme that can just give us some open passes. So that's going to lead to some things for Pitts, but I don't think it'll be challenging the Eagles secondary. Right now, the Falcons, what they want as much as anything else is just some consistency they didn't get last week, and that they'll do that schematically versus personnel-wise.
All right, let's look at the secondary of the Eagles. You've got, obviously, London and Mooney. You got some interesting receivers there. Not like a number 1A guy. Mitchell, we'll see what happens in the slot. Is Rodgers going to be back? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and, of course, Darius Slay. Is this a matchup that you like for Philly?
Yeah, as mentioned, Slay's numbers, they weren't very good last week, and I've got him listed as a green-rated cornerback. It's just I think he's capable of better than this, but I think he also tries to make too many big plays. Big play Slay, I think he needs to be how about big coverage Slay? I mean, let's get the big plays after you make the big coverage. We don't need a Lito Shepherd situation here. So that's where I would be concerned if I was the Eagles. They've got Ray Cloud as the number 3 receiver. London hasn't played as well as he's capable of. If I'm them also, they've got a bad offensive line, and Cousins will take chances with the ball. He will force passes into coverage. If I'm the Eagles, hey, I want you guys throwing the ball, and I want to bait you into trying to throw some pass. I want to get a pass rush, and I want to bait you into throwing some interceptions and things. So if I'm the Eagles, if the Falcons want to go with what I think they're going to go with, a high percentage passing enough, they want to do that, you need to do something to disrupt that and make them take more chances, because maybe that's the time when Slade can make some big plays. You can get some other things out of this defense, because I think Atlanta's a team, if you don't end up with 3 sacks in the pick against this team, I think you didn't have a good game.
All right, there you go. Some matchups to watch for Philadelphia and the Falcons. And, of course, you can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. If someone has a big game, is it Robinson or the pass game?
But if somebody has a big game, I would bet it's Robinson because they got him 19 touches last week, and I think that they don't think that's enough for him. I think they want to get him 22, 23, 25 touches a week. I think that he's going to be the focal point of their offense if they can't get the passing game going.
All right. Of course, the year I didn't draft him in fantasy. Now they want him to have a lot of touches. One thought every game, Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Let's start with tonight, Bills and Dolphins. One thought every game. Bills won 3 straight versus Miami. They swept the Dolphins in 5 of the last 7 years. 3 losses in Miami over the last 10 years. It's supposed to be hot down there tonight. So are the Bills going to keep their winning ways against the Dolphins?
Tim Graham, one of our Buffalo writers for The Athletic, he just posted something on the live blog that I'm working, and it said that the Bills had trouble covering the Arizona receivers last week. Tim's as good at anything else as you'll find, and he's right, they did. But Arizona was 0 for 7 on vertical passes last week. Kyler Murray had the worst vertical yards per attempt, or vertical passing, fantasy points and vertical passes each of the last 2 years, 0 for 7 last week. So if you can't cover their receivers when they can't get vertical passes going, imagine what happens when you cover Miami's receivers and they can get vertical passes going. I'll take Dolphins in this one.
All right, he likes the Dolphins, so do I. 2.5 the number there, and you can listen to the game tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Let's go to the Sunday slate. Dallas Cowboys at home against the Saints. You can hear the game on 97.3 ESPN. You know, the Cowboys have won 16 straight games at home, one of 5 teams over the last 25 years to win 16 straight games at home. The last one, the Brady-Belichick Patriots duo. So, do they keep that winning streak alive against the 47-point Saints?
The Saints got 47 points because the Panthers are just an atrocious team. I looked at their metrics this week, and it's hard to find a place where the Panthers were good at all. So I think the Saints aren't anywhere near as good as that number would indicate. The thing is, Dallas has plenty of frontline talent. They have they don't have any depth. They have no depth on this team. They've got issues all the way across the board. They start getting injuries, this is a team that will have some problems. Right now, they're healthy. And I think CeeDee Lamb's capable of playing even better than he did last week, and they could probably get more production out of the ground game, too. So I like Dallas to keep that win streak going.
All right, Dallas wins on that one. Buccaneers and the Lions. The Lions host the Bucs this week, and they played the Rams last week at home in Week 1. They played them in the playoffs. Now they're playing the Bucs, who they played in the playoffs last year as well. Can they do what they did last year, beat the Rams, and now the Buccaneers?
The thing about the Bucs is that Baker Mayfield, if you give him bad defense, in fact, I got beaten fantasy because one of the guys against me scored 37 points because Baker stormed for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns against a terrible Commander secondary. The Lions secondary, they're talking about, they had Carlton Davis. Now, they're still bad. Their metrics are bad. Their personnel still isn't good. They have problems back there. If Detroit doesn't make it to win the Super Bowl, it's because of their secondary. Tampa's going to test that secondary. The thing is, the Lions, they didn't get much of the Amon-Ra St. Brown last week, didn't get much of the Sam Laporta. You can get those guys back in line. You got Jameson Williams, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, you still got Montgomery. I just like that. That's a caliber of firepower that few teams can match, and Tampa being included, so I'll take the Lions.
All right, one thought every game. Let's go to the Colts and the Packers. First meeting between these two teams since 2022. They played in Week 11 in Indianapolis. It was Phillip Rivers against Aaron Rodgers. It was an overtime game, back and forth. Different quarterbacks this time around. It'll be Malik Willis against Anthony Richardson. The Packers are seeking to avoid an 0-2 start for the first time since 2006. That's 17 consecutive seasons that they have not been 0-2. Is that streak safe?
I'm not sure that it is because, you got Jordan Love getting hurt. I mean, they keep being coy, but if he's going to play, he ain't going to play this week. It's a miracle if he does, and if he does, he's going to be really banged up. The problem for the Packers, though, as bad as this to not have Love, they've got a terrible run defense. I mean, I give the Eagles all the kudos we talked about earlier, but the Packers just a bad run defense. Lots of space, lots of bad pursuit angles, just made a ton of mistakes against the run last week. So the Colts, I mean, you've got Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson going up against that. I think they'll be able to get a good ground game. And Richardson shows nothing else. He can hit long passes, or at least occasional ones. I think the Packers have trouble. I mean, they'll move the ball with Jacobs because the Colts run defense isn't that good, but they can't match the pass against.
I said to a buddy of mine, if you watch the red zone, you would think Richardson was good. If you didn't watch the red zone, you would think that he has no business being an NFL starting quarterback. Very erratic, 9 of 19 for Anthony Richardson. Let's go to the Jets and the Titans. Aaron Rodgers, never been 0-2 in his entire career. Will this be his first time?
Yeah, he didn't play particularly well, but again, it's like, oh, he played bad and all that. It's like, look, it's San Francisco, it's on the road. I mean, it's like, yeah, they ran the ball. Yeah, San Francisco can do that, and yeah, they did. The Jets didn't have a very good passing game. Yeah, the 49ers can make you look bad. That's one of the things. You go on the road against that team, they can do that to just about anybody. The thing is, you still have plenty of defensive talent on the Jets. Rodgers is showing, by the way, though. He's playing favorites again. Lazard, I mean, everybody should pick him up in fantasy leagues because Rodgers plays favorites. He says, this is a guy I'm going to go throw to. He's got 3 receivers shooting through all his passes to last week. So I think those people will get going because the Titans secondary isn't that good. And Will Levis, that pass, how do you make that throw?
There's a lot of quarterbacks in this league, I think you would say, pass on. There's a lot of guys who are talented. They're just not ready to play this soon in their careers. I think that's something that needs to kind of be looked at more are these guys starting their careers too early, and it's hurting them. They're not ready. 49ers and Vikings, the Niners have not been 2-0, believe it or not, in consecutive years since 95-96. That's going way back. I was in high school. They were 2-0 last year. Will they be 2-0 this year?
Just to clarify, did you want to take New York in that one matchup? So,
okay,
in case that wasn't obvious. Darnold's a great fit for Minnesota. You got a really good play caller. You've got good receivers, and he only has to be. He doesn't have to be the savior. He could just go be our system guy. He could do that pretty well. And I think that the Vikings could be a surprise team this year if he stays healthy. And it showed last week what they could do because they've got a solid defense and they've got decent ground game. So, I mean, they got a big win there. But, look, they're playing the Niners. McCaffrey looks like he's going to come back and play this week. Not that they need him. Jordan Mason looks like he's every bit as good. But when you've got the caliber of offensive talent that the San Francisco has, and Minnesota's defense is good, but it's not that good, I don't think Darnold could keep up. So I'll take San Francisco solidly if McCaffrey doesn't play, really solidly if he does.
All right, Seahawks and Patriots. Last time these teams played with neither Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll coaching was 1993. It was Bill Parcells against Tom Flores in that game there. Oh, how things have changed for these two.
Oh, wow, that is an old school matchup there. That's not what you think of when you're thinking of their Hall of Fame resumes. Maybe Belichick or maybe Parcells, but certainly not Flores. Hey, look, give the Patriots credit. They went to Cincinnati. Cincinnati really didn't seem to take the game as seriously as they should. They played a really good defensive battle. They did a lot of things to shut down the Bengals offense. I mean, they did a lot of, they exploited the Bengals' personnel weaknesses. Did a lot of good things. And Ramondre Stevenson, he can run the ball really well. He's a guy who can give the ball 25. You don't want to do it every week, but you can do it if you need to. But the thing is, they can run against Seattle. But Seattle still has a ground game that's every bit as good, and plus they have a receiving core that if it came down to it and you needed to get some bigger plays, they've got a much better receiving core than what Cincinnati had last week. So I think the Patriots get tested. I'll take Seattle.
One thought every game, NFC East, Giants and Commanders. The Giants have won their last 3 games against Washington. They're 8-2-1 in the last 11 meetings against their division rival going back to 2018. Both these teams looked terrible last week. So who bounces back in week 2?
Daniels, as bad as he looked in some ways, got 88 yards, rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, a 93.1 passer rating. I mean, I know the passer rating is it can be an iffy stat, but it's still a solid barometer. If you look at it, go, okay, there's something I can build on there. If we're watching here, think there's something you can build on. What do you build on if you're the Giants? I mean, those uniforms were awesome. I love the old school unis. They're great. But Daniel Jones, 15 yards on 6 carries, 44.3 passer rating. I'd already talked about maybe he's going to be fighting for his job. I'll take Washington in that kind of case, especially since it's at home.
All right, one thought every game. Let's go to the Chargers and the Panthers. The last time these teams played, we're going back to 2020, Week 3. Panthers won that game, but this is a different Panthers team. They are 6-1 all-time against the Chargers, so they got to win somewhere. Is this the right opponent?
I can't understand. As I said last week, I did not understand that Carolina's only a 4-point dog. I'm like, these guys are terrible, and the Saints were much better. And I don't, again, you don't expect a 37-point loss, but it's like this is a much better team personnel-wise. Look at the Chargers, and I go, the Chargers already know, hey, we're a Jim Harbaugh team. We run the ball. Dobbins looks fantastic. He looked fantastic in the preseason training camp, evidently. I mean, they were saying his burst was back. Yeah, it looks that good. Gus Edwards can still power the ball really well. Carolina's rush defense looks terrible. And you still have Herbert, who could do more than what they've asked him to do, and plus their defense plays better. I think the Chargers win this one handily.
All right, let's go to one thought every game. Browns and Jaguars. It's the first NFL meeting between the two Clemson guys, Watson and Lawrence. So which quarterback are you taking in this one?
Look at the Jaguars. Bitter loss last week, but the thing is they've got a two-back backfield now. Tank Bigsby had 12 carries and Etienne had 12 carries. I think they want to make sure they don't wear Etienne out, so that's a really good thing for them. And again, they're playing at Miami. They went toe-to-toe. Miami's a really, obviously a really good team, and you, you go on the road there and you play well. So it's tough for them, but they can say, hey, we came really close to this. The Browns, they just look completely overmatched. And now you got the off-field issues with Watson. Their run game isn't good. Their receiving core doesn't look that good. Their defense looked bad. And I think a lot of teams, when they go to Jacksonville, they just don't take the game as seriously as they should. Somehow, teams just they really don't. I've been to Jacksonville a number of times. I hate it too, but,
I've never been there. I can't really chime in on this one.
I have had many bad experiences in Jacksonville, and I never plan on going back there if I can avoid it. And the Browns are going to feel the same way when they get done with this game.
All right, Raiders and Ravens, one thought every game. The Ravens 7-1 in their last 8 home openers, going back to 2016. They're 0-1. Doesn't feel like a great Raiders spot here. If you're the Raiders, you got to go to Baltimore, knowing that number there. Don't feel good if you're Vegas.
You don't. I mean, Antonio Pierce had a feel-good story last year. He takes over as interim coach. You could tell the players gravitated to this guy, and he goes out last week and. They got a 7-3 lead in the first quarter against the Chargers, but then that power-centric approach took over. The Chargers outscored Las Vegas 19-3 after that. Baltimore's mad about having lost to Kansas City. I'm not saying they think anything bad about it, but like, hey, if Likely's toe comes down, they think they win in overtime. The Raiders don't handle power football very well, and I think, Derrick Henry only gets 46 yards last week. Yeah, I think he gets 100-plus this week, so I'll take Baltimore big.
All right, one thought every game. We're in the 4 o'clock ones, Rams and Cardinals. The Cardinals, believe it or not, have not been 0-2 in consecutive seasons since being there 3 straight times back in 0-3, 4, and 5. So the Cardinals trying to avoid an 0-2 start for consecutive seasons against the Rams, who are all banged up.
Yeah, Rams are really banged up. Although Tyler Johnson played well in Puka Nakua's place, so that's a plus there. You still, and mind you, they're all, they've got all those injuries and such, but Kyron Williams looked great. They didn't even play Blake Corum last week. He didn't get carried in touch last week, and so it shows you that they still have a ton of offensive talent. They do have those injury issues. The thing about Arizona is, I keep coming back to this, is that Kyler Murray, he's the worst vertical passer in the league. Again, dead last in fantasy vertical points per game, not like over the course of the year, on a per game basis. Dead last each of the past 2 years, and doesn't complete one last week against the Bills secondary that's really not that good. So if you can't make big plays, I think it's going to be one of the closest games of the week, but I'll take the Rams' ability to make some big plays versus the Cardinals' inability to make those.
All right, one thought every game, Steelers and Broncos. If Russell Wilson plays, he'll face the team that he last played for. He was 11-19 in his 30 starts. Justin Fields, he was 11-28 in Pittsburgh, second worst win percentage among quarterbacks with at least 20 starts. So Fields, Wilson, does it even matter? Or is this the Broncos we're talking about, and the Steelers can go on the road and win this thing because Bo Nix is on the other side?
Yeah, Bo Nix is, I'll tell you, the Steelers, both teams are in bad quarterback situations. I love that old John Madden saying, you said if you had 2 quarterbacks, you didn't have one, and you need to have a starter. That's where the Steelers are right now, and Fields doesn't look that good, and Wilson's still banged up. Like, maybe he'll play, maybe he won't. Is this injury worse than what we're thinking? Are they found an excuse to put Fields in there? Whatever it is, the Steelers still have a really good ground game. Jalen Warren's getting healthier. They leaned really heavily on the other, I can't think of the running back. Ward's going to get more carries this week, though, because he's getting healthier, and I think it's going to continue over the course of the next few weeks. They have a really tough defense, strong special teams, 6 for 6 and field goals out of Boswell. So Bo Nix, at one point, his numbers were looking to be they was going to have like the worst rookie start in some measurements since the AFL for merger. It's in that long. His final numbers weren't that much better. They got no receiving core. The running game doesn't do well. Denver's defense, maybe they'll keep it close for a while, but I'm going to take the Steelers pretty big.
One thought every game. This game's on 97.3 ESPN. It's the Bengals and the Chiefs. The Bengals looking to avoid an 0-2 start for the 5th time in the last 6 years. It wasn't supposed to be this way, but they got to go to Kansas City after that egg against the Patriots.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of excuses. Al Davis used to say, if you want to make an excuse in a game, you can do so. And a coach's job is to make sure you don't have any excuses. That doesn't matter what the excuses are. You find a way to overcome them. But they can blame overturned touchdowns, bad ball security, food poisoning, Joe Burrow's wrist, T. Higgins being injured, all these different things. I just don't think they're as good as they were 2 years ago. And in Super Bowl, I think they've lost enough talent. I don't think they're as good. They're still potentially a playoff caliber team, but I don't think it's a team you say, hey, it's a Super Bowl caliber team. And the Chiefs, they took on the bully of the block last week with Baltimore coming in and handled the run game really well and handled what they could do. And I think when it comes to Cincinnati, you're like, hey, Higgins still going to be banged up if he plays, and who knows where Jamar Chase's head is at this point. So I'm taking Kansas City pretty big.
All right, one thought every game, and we finish up on Sunday Night Football. And, of course, you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. It's Caleb Williams and the Bears taking on the Texans. Bears are 3-14 in road games since the start of 2022. It's the second worst number. The only team that is worse than that is the Panthers at 2-16. So doesn't feel like a great spot for Chicago at Houston.
It doesn't. And they only generate 148 in total net yards on offense last week. They get a block punt return for a touchdown. They get that insane pick six from Will Levis making that pass. So you're not going to count on those sorts of things happening, especially when C.J. Stroud's on the other side. The Texans have so much offensive talent that, like, I look at it from a fantasy football perspective at times, and they have so many players. There's going to be times when these top-notch guys, when you have a Nico Collins, you're going to have a Tank Dell, you're going to have a Stephon Diggs. They're going to have bad weeks because there's just too much talent on this offense. And I think you got a guy in Stroud who's already showed that he can throw vertical passes and stretch vertical passes as well as anybody in the league. So I think that will be those big plays will be there more than enough for Houston and not for Chicago. I'll take Texans.
All right, there you go. One thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic here on the Sports Bash. We'll finish up with that Monday night thought. Get your thought on that one. The ultimate ending, Philadelphia-Atlanta. This Atlanta team, they got some weapons. They got Cousins. He didn't look good, but they had some defense. Kind of an intriguing game. I like Atlanta to win that division, but I don't know they got enough to come here on a Monday night. Jason Kelce will be back in the house. By the way, it was just announced today that Monday at 6:15, Nick Foles is going to have a press conference for his retirement announcement. That's a lot for the Falcons to go into.
Yeah, that is. I've been watching a lot of Rocky clips of late, and I think the Falcons are going to feel a lot like Apollo Creed after that second fight. I just don't see – I keep looking at going, okay, they've got Bijan. He's really good. They've got some talent. I don't like their offensive line. I don't like their secondary that much. I know the Eagles have some problems in the secondary, but I look at it and go, the Eagles can get Barkley, Hurts, Brown, Smith, Goddard, and the great offensive line versus a terrible offensive line. It's at Philadelphia, whole yards. I'm looking at Atlanta going, again, I think they're going to want to just get in here and get out of here and take the loss and start thinking about week 3 because I think their chances of winning here are pretty slim.
Well, and keep in mind, too, Philadelphia played Friday. They had a couple extra days off now to prepare for this game. You got all that going up against you. It's a Monday night game in Philly, and you can listen to the game right here with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick on 97.3 ESPN. Tuesday, Casey Joyner's back with one thought on every Week 2 game. We'll take a look back at what happened and how it happened right here on the Sports Bash. All right, buddy, we'll talk to you then.
Thank you, man.
All right, Casey Joyner is brought to you by Cooper University Hospital Healthcare. They're doing something different for families down the shore at Cooper University Healthcare. 5 o'clock hour of the show live here at Chickies and Pete's. It's brought to you by my good friends over at Key Acura of Atlantic City. Rocco and the guys, now through September 30th, you can drive a 2025 Integra for just $399 a month with $29.95 down. If you need more room, ask about an RDX all-wheel drive, $393 a month with $49.95 down. Visit Key Acura of Atlantic City, Tilton Road, EHG, your small but friendly dealer. See dealer for details when we come back. What are the best games to bet this weekend? The college games. We got a six-pack for you. Jeff Nadeau, our betting expert, is coming up next with his favorite 3-pack of college, 3-pack of NFL games. Stick around, make a couple bucks here on the Sports Bash.
We have the perfect sitting in traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Streaming live video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Use the hashtag SB Live. Jeff Nadeau's here, everybody, getting ready for another week of football, college football, the NFL. It starts tonight on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, you can listen to the action and all weekend long. We get into some college plays, Jeff's favorite plays, and more as Jeff Nadeau joins me now at Jeff Nadeau on the X platform. Sports betting, content, all sorts of great college football, NFL stuff for your weekend. Jeff is back here on the Sports Bash. Jeff, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
All is good, man. All right, now we're pumping with some gas in the college football season. We're ready to go. We got better feelings about some of these teams. I know you have been doing the research, and you had a good week last week, by the way, at least on our show. I know Penn State over was one of the plays there, and we're ready to go with a couple more picks for you. So let's throw out some of Jeff's favorite plays. Let's start with, how about Bill O'Brien's club up there at Boston College? In the rankings, Missouri, top 10 team. This one all of a sudden has become a little fun matchup. We got Missouri minus 16 over under 53.5 at ESPN Bet.
Yeah, so Mike, this is a game that I think by week 3, you start to kind of find maybe there are teams that are a little overvalued, and I think Mizzou could be that. Listen, I really like Missouri, okay? They have a great offense. They have the best receiving core in the country and a great quarterback. That said, do I think they truly are the number 6 team in America? No. You have to understand, Mike, they played Murray State and Buffalo. Okay, they're the only team that has played 2 games in America that have not allowed a point yet. Okay, so again, the defense a little overvalued. A team that lost some talent last year, they're now going to play a real offense, an offense that can move the ball, an offense that's protected its quarterback well, an offense that, as you said, has Bill O'Brien, a quarterback that's been able to move the ball. You look at BC, 56-28 in 2 games. One of them was against Florida State. I look at this game and I say, I don't want to have anything to do with the side. This total is only 53.5, 54. I like the over in this game. I think both teams get into the mid to high 20s here and push this one over the total. Maybe 31-27, 34-28, something like that. 2 good quarterbacks, 2 defenses that I don't love. I had Missouri pegged as kind of a defensive issue this year and an offense that can really move the ball. That's what they were last year. That's what I think they are this year.
All right, there you go. Over 53.5, whatever number you guys can get. He likes the over. Missouri, Boston College, Illinois, minus 18, Central Michigan, the Chippewas. Pat Bryant has had a great start. Big play receiver there. Good quarterback, Luke Altmaier for Illinois. But the Chippewas, we were just talking about the MAC before you came on. You know, the Pac-12 is looking for teams. Nobody in the MAC really stands out. What do you think of this Chippewa team? Illinois, Central Michigan, minus 18, Illinois, over under 49.5.
I think one of the real, kind of forgotten stories last week, and again, Illinois is not a premier Big Ten team. That said, a very good win last week against a team in Kansas who, is a top 25 team or fringe top 25 team. Illinois, better defensively this year. You mentioned Altmaier. He's played well. They've got some skill guys. Their defense seems like it's right back to normal. And I'm just going to tell you, Mike, CMU sucks. This team is not good. They have a quarterback, Joe Labus, who wasn't good enough to be the second-string quarterback at Iowa, okay, a team who can't move the ball. Joe Labus had 5 turnovers last week against not Florida, not Florida State, not Florida Atlantic, Florida International. Florida International beat this group 52-16 last week. Really just pathetic performance by CMU. It can't get stops on defense, can't move the ball on offense. This has all the makings to me of like a 34-7 type of game. 38-10. I think CMU get crushed in this one. I think anything under 21, I have interest in Illinois. I think this team will move the ball. And I've talked before, Mike, MAC teams struggle when stepping up and playing Power 5 opponents.
All right, Illinois, if you can get a number under 21, it's minus 18 ESPN Bet right now. Let's go to Georgia, Kentucky. This isn't the same Kentucky team that's been competitive the last couple of years. I think they're down. Georgia Beck, Arian Smith having a great start to the year. No ETN, no problem. Nate Frazier's done really well. If you've been watching Georgia, it's probably the best team in the country so far. They're ranked number 1, and this Kentucky outfit, not big. Minus 24, 45.5. That number suggests that Kentucky ain't scoring much anyway.
Well, and they're not going to. They really struggled last week against a good defense in South Carolina. Now you got to go and play Georgia, which is a really tall order. Georgia's offenses looked really good. They've looked really terrific as usual with Carson Beck. One of the issues I have with Kentucky, Mike, this group's allowed 5 sacks through 2 games. And one of the games is against Southern Miss. I mean, they just can't block up front. The quarterback position is a mess with this team. You look at last week for Kentucky, their quarterback, Brock Vandegrift, 3 for 10 for 30 yards. They only had 44 total passing yards in the game. And again, now you got to go and play Georgia. Just a rough game. Mark Stoops, not a guy I'm a big fan of to begin with. I don't know if you remember last year, Mike, but that Kentucky team was significantly better than this one. They lost 51-13 at Georgia. I'm not real worried about laying this number. I would lay it here.
24 is the number. If you like the big number, Georgia is the play there. Jeff Nadeau, his favorite plays of the week. There's 3 in the college game. Let's go over the NFL. We got tonight's game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Since our listeners probably want to get a little action in the game tonight, don't bet if you don't have to. But if you like something in the game, you got 2.5, 48.5, Bills, Miami tonight right here on 97.3.
Yeah, I still think there's some meat on the bone with Miami. I kind of like this spot for the Dolphins here. They're just a tough team to fade at home. It seems like every time they're at home, they get the job done. Just kind of a different atmosphere for them. They've been a good favorite overall. Again, been a good home team, covered, I think, 7 of the last 10 at home. I'm not going to take anything away from what the Buffalo Bills did. I think for me, I was impressed with how well they played. Again, look, they don't necessarily have a great receiver there, but it's just been kind of a mix of everything. But remember, Mike, they didn't cover against Arizona. I told you last week I kind of liked Arizona plus the 6.5. I didn't think their defense was particularly strong, Buffalo. And I think that's a real worry here against a really good offense, as we know, in Miami. I'm not really looking to fade Miami. Under 3, I lean with the Dolphins.
Yeah, by the way, Dolphins are minus 2.5. That game coverage starts in less than 2 hours here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm with you. I like the Dolphins at home against Buffalo. Wasn't a big Buffalo fan coming into the year. Then they got down big early last week. They come roaring back against a average to bad Arizona team. I was with you last week on that. I'm with the big man again this week here. Miami, minus 2.5, the play for him, and I'll follow you on that. Let's go to the 2 games on Sunday that are on 97.3 ESPN. So if you're driving around in your car, you want a little action on these, we got Dallas and the Saints. That coverage starts Sunday at 12:30. Dallas, minus 6, 46.5. Saints put up 47 last week, and Dallas had a big offensive showing against Cleveland.
Yeah, I think we have to, though, look at who the New Orleans Saints are playing. Look, my God, the Panthers are that bad. I mean, Bryce Young is a disaster. I mean, just a complete mess. The Cowboys' defense is legit, as we know. I've said before, and I know Eagles fans won't like to hear this, I think Dak Prescott's an MVP candidate. I think he's that good. And again, the MVP is during the regular season. He wasn't great last week, but he didn't have to be. The Browns were just a complete mess. It's more, though, to me, I thought the Cowboys just perform. The Browns are a good team. They got a great defense. Look, say what you want about Deshaun Watson, but they have a great defense. To me, anything under 7, I lean Dallas here. I think the Saints are a little overvalued. I didn't think they were very good. I think they were just a product of who they played. Dallas has covered 7 of 10 laying points. They're a good home team. And I think New Orleans is a little overvalued after last week's blowout against the worst team in the NFL by a wide margin.
Yeah, I follow you there as well. Not buying the Saints. Let's go to the doubleheader game. We've got game 2 of 3 on Sunday on 97.3 ESPN. Cincy and Kansas City. This looked like a an AFC Championship preview game. Then Cincinnati, laid an absolute turd burger on Sunday against the Patriots. Now they're minus 5.5, 47.5 against Kansas City, who's got the extra time with the Thursday night game. I don't know what happened to Cincinnati, but does that play into this number 5.5, Jeff Nadeau?
Yeah, I like the Chiefs here. Again, the Bengals, I don't think can be backed for a week or two here. There's a couple of things. First of which, Joe Burrow, I've talked about this, has major issues in the first 3 weeks of the season. I think he's injured. Throw in the fact that T. Higgins hasn't practiced this week. Jermaine Burton, I believe, remains out. They had contract issues with Jamar Chase. I mean, this is a messed up offense right now. They don't have Joe Mixon anymore. This is just not very good. I'll be honest, Mike. I have Joe Burrow in fantasy. I benched him this week. I went with Justin Herbert. I have both quarterback. You look at the outside of Chase, who's kind of disgruntled. I mean, Mike, do you know who their second receiver is? Because I'll tell you if you don't.
Cincinnati, no, not off the top of my head right this minute.
A person called Andre Iosivas.
Gotcha.
Never heard of him.
Wasn't coming up in my head either. Although I bet you could tell me where he went to college.
No.
Oh, man, a stumper.
In fact, I didn't know this. He played at Princeton.
Okay.
But again, that's what we're working with here. You know, Zach Moss, decent running back, but he's not Joe Mixon. We saw what Joe Mixon did last week. I can't bet the Bengals until further notice. Until I know Joe Burrow's out of the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, he's got his weapons back. At least give me T. Higgins or someone. Now, again, if we find out T's going to play and he can be – again, just because he plays doesn't mean he'll be effective. So, yeah, I lean Chiefs here. I hate to go 2 favorites, but at 5, kind of a dead number, I like the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm kind of following you along on that one, too. Cincinnati's a team I really – liked entering the year, but the contract stuff, the Burrow stuff, the depth at receiver, you mentioned, problem there, and then the performance they put up on Sunday against what is universally thought to be a bad Patriots team. They laid a complete egg in that one, and of course, we'll have that game for you here on 97.3 ESPN. The last Sunday night game, you got the Bears and Houston. Houston -6. Over under 45.5. That's the third game we'll have for you Sunday night right here on 97.3 ESPN. Bears look terrible with Williams, not even 100 yards passing. Odunze banged up. I thought Houston, that game was a lot of fun. I think as you I'll use your line, more meat on the bone for Houston there. Interesting number, -6, over under 45.5.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears didn't do anything offensively that will warrant you want to back them here. I think they got just really lucky on a team that just kind of collapsed. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know what the Titans were up to in the second half. That was ugly, though. Get completely shut out, 21-0, pathetic. As far as Chicago, it's a work in progress with their offense. I don't know if they're going to get much against Houston, who, look, I thought played pretty well. Indy was able to hang within the number. I had the Colts last week, so I was happy about that. I'm kind of lukewarm on this game. I think the Bears will be better. They're very opportunistic, it seems like. But the Texans have all sorts of weapons. It's kind of a pass for me. I feel like the number's right.
All right, Jeff Nadeau, at Jeff Nadeau on the X platform. Before we let you run, of the groups of the games this weekend, what is your favorite play?
You mean in college or just overall?
just if you were saying to anybody, you pick one game, what's your favorite game that you –
I will say, I mean, I kind of just rate them all the same, but I like Mizzou, BC over. I think both those offenses can move the ball. I don't necessarily trust either defense.
All right, Jeff, Eddie, got to get your thoughts on the Eagles game, whether or not impressed, more questions, left kind of head scratching. A lot of people all over the place with that performance on Friday night.
Yeah, but I guess here's what I'll say. I mean, it was in Brazil, okay? At the end of the day, they got a win. The field was a disaster. I think you just have to look at what you found. I mean, they scored 34 points, probably could have gotten to the 40s if not for some red zone turnovers. Jalen Hurts needs to be better as far as he can't make certain throws. We all know that. But Saquon was terrific. The receivers are great. I thought Zach Bond, I thought the linebackers are a real question mark per usual, but Bond was very good. I thought the secondary at times was good. They got to get a better pass rush. Mike, that's a very big concern if you're an Eagle fan. That their pass rush, I just don't know if they have any talent there. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, Brandon Graham's old. Bryce Huff, who knows? Sweat was non-existent. They're going to have a problem. They're going to have a lot of high-scoring games if that pass rush is what it is. As far as in this game, I thought the Falcons were poor over the weekend. I chalked that up, though, to week one. Problem is, Kirk Cousins is a disaster in preseason, or not preseason, primetime games. Something tells me, though, the Eagles, they always seem to struggle with Kirk Cousins. I remember when he was at Washington, it always seemed like he played well against the Eagles. I get a feeling this is going to tick up to 7. If it does, maybe I'll take a shot with Atlanta. It's just so far ahead, I can't really get involved. But I will say that sharp money early is taking the Eagles again.
All right, Jeff. Of course, always a pleasure to have you on. Get your picks. Everybody out there, he likes Mizzou, BC over 53.5, Illinois -18, Georgia -24 for the college plays. Dallas, Kansas City are the two NFL plays for us this week right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, my friend, we'll catch up with you next week, pal.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, Jeff Nadeau, everybody, sports betting content creator over at Jeff Nadeau on Twitter. Make sure you follow him for all the plays. He's got his Patreon picks and plays. We got our play. Our Bet365 play of the day is coming up next here on the Sports.
It's Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, time for the Best 365 play of the day. Bet 365 play of the day, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet 365. We got Thursday Night Football tonight. I'm going Josh Allen anytime touchdown plus 100 on the value there. Jaden Waddle going over 4.5 receptions. He's done that 8 of his last 10 games, and put those two together. And what do you got? Some buckaroonies there, Josh. Allen, anytime score. Waddle, over 4.5 touchdowns. That's my Bet 365 play of the day. Lost last night. Caitlin Clark was 1 of 10 from 3-point range last night.
Yeah, she let you down, Mike.
She did let me down. 1 of 10, man.
You know, the young lady, she shows up for the first time with a lovely outfit on, and she has a bad shooting night. She needs to go back to the casual clothes.
I don't know what she was wearing, but she wasn't wearing any net because I didn't hit anything but rim last
People were
night.
making a big deal because she had a Gucci bag and a Gucci dress on last night. So.
Iron unkind for Clark last night cost me in my Bet 365 play of the day. All right, that's it. Good time. Chickies and Pete's filling up, by the way. You know why? Thursday Night Football. I like the Dolphins tonight. I like Dolphins at home, 2.5. If you can get it up to 3, go for that. I like Miami tonight. Buffalo, Miami tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Our coverage starts at 7:30. We had Kevin Harlan on earlier today, if you missed that. And check that out on the video on the X platform at Mike Gill Show. Follow me there. You can watch each and every show here on the X platform. Thanks to Chickies and Pete's. And don't forget their Bourbon and Cigars Perfect Pairing Day, October 17th, 6:30. Pre-sale tickets. They're $60, but $75 at the door. That includes 4 bourbons, a cocktail with a bourbon choice, and a cigar as well. Check it out online.